afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Kennesaw State University AI Sales Symposium. It's hosted by the Center for Professional Selling, co-sponsored by our friends at Cobient.ai. My name is Scott Eggs. I'm Executive Director of the Center, and I am super excited to see all the sales leaders here, KSU faculty, staff, and of course our sales students who are here this afternoon. We've got a great lineup of speakers, phenomenal lineup of speakers. It's going to be a fantastic event. But before we begin, I do want to take a moment to recognize that today is Veterans Day. And on behalf of Kennesaw State University, we express our gratitude to all who have served and continue to serve our nation. Your courage and commitment make it possible for us to gather freely like we are this afternoon, I guess, to learn, grow, and network. If you're a veteran or currently serving, would you please stand up? Thank you very much. At the Center for Professional Selling, our mission is simple: to advance the sales profession. We do that by developing sales talent, connecting students and industry, and promoting professionalism in sales and sales management. Everything that we do, from the courses we teach, the research we do, the events we hold, and the work we do with our students and partners outside the classroom, are designed to accomplish that mission. We also recognize the most effective way for us to advance the sales profession is through our students. And to that end, we want our students to graduate not just with the knowledge, but with confidence, competence, and the character necessary to make a positive impact on the profession throughout their careers. Another part of that mission is outreach. And so as we move forward, the Center will be working on ways to give back to the business community by disseminating relevant and timely research, working with industry partners, and hosting events like this one. Tonight's topic, how AI is transforming the way buyers buy, sellers sell, and managers manage, couldn't be more timely. Artificial intelligence is reshaping how we build trust, deliver insight, and create value for our customers. Our goal this evening is to explore that transformation through the perspective of industry experts who are on the front lines of this transformation. I'd like to thank our speakers, panelists, and the CPS partners who made events like this possible. I also want to recognize our students who are working attending this event. Students, here. Fantastic students. Are you here, students? Let's go. There we go. You needed that for my next sentence. So these students are hard chargers. Coachable and have an appetite for sales. They truly represent the next generation of sales excellence. And if you're looking for sales talent, you've come to the right spot. And now to kick off the evening, I'm pleased to introduce our MC, John Diddick, Vice President of Business Development at MicroTouch. And John will share with you a little more about his background and introduce the rest of our speakers. But I can tell you John's daughter, Lauren, is one of our sales alum and was also one of our first sales ambassadors. And actually, she's the reason we got connected to John. John's been an outstanding friend of the Center and was instrumental in making this symposium possible. He brings a wealth of experience and insight into tonight's discussion. John, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. Everybody hear me okay? So, and you stole my thunder on Veterans Day, but thank you to all the veterans out there. Really appreciate everything you do for all of us. When Scott and Brent called me and asked me if I would be a part of this and help MC the event and help with some of the speakers, with Scott and Brent knowing the program that my daughter went through, you don't say yes or no, you say, how can I help? And my daughter benefited from this program immensely, and she's doing outstandingly well now with a company called Bunzel. We're extremely proud of her. She is an ambassador at Kennesaw State. So the program is second to none. You guys do a tremendous job, so thank you for that. Today, it's all about AI. It's all about having fun, right? We want to make this fun and informative, and we're going to do this a little bit with a twist. In terms of myself, as Scott mentioned, I'm a global vice president with MicroTouch. Do any of you have an iPhone out there? So we make the touchscreen for Apple, right? We're the largest global OEM for touchscreens in the world. If you have a Tesla, a Toyota, a Porsche, a Nissan, everything except for a Hyundai and a Kia, you're pretty much touching our touchscreens today. But we also have a branded product called MicroTouch, and if you go into like a Chick-fil-A, if you go into like a Whataburger, in the back of the house, you'll see these kitchen displays. Those are pretty much all ours. We have point-of-sale kiosks, so we're kind of everywhere. You just don't know that it's us, but you're touching our product every single day, especially if you wake up to the iPhone. But it's truly an honor to be on the stage with all the individuals, and so we're going to start it off with Keith Zott. Esper is an amazing company that's kind of driving AI, and so, for example, with Esper, and I don't want to steal any of Keith's thunder, but he's out of Seattle, and they are an MDM remote management company. Do a lot of really cool things. So say, for example, if you're Chick-fil-A, and you've got 80,000 Android devices between all the branches out there, you can control all the content on the drive-through menu boards, the inside menu board. You can change pricing, you can change calorie count. Esper is really on the cutting edge when it comes to MDM and remote management. And Keith is an outstanding partner. I really want to thank him for being here. But he's going to kick everything off from a buyer's perspective of what people are looking at for AI. We also have Nakia Shelton. You guys are coming up already. Nakia Shelton, who's the global president of sales for UPS. She's also a KSU grad. Nakia is going to talk about from a sales perspective and on AI, and we're very happy to have you here, so thank you for coming in. And then I am going to continue on the sales side and talk about some tools and things, that to look forward to with AI and in sales. And then we have Michael Beck with Inktank. He's the founder. Inktank is really a cutting-edge AI technology and marketing company. And that song that you heard going up there, Michael did that in a minute. So he had all of our names. He had, the KSU, the owls, everything. And he literally built that in 1 minute. But he's going to talk about some tools that'll be beneficial for a lot of the grads as you all graduate and you get into the workforce. But also a lot of people in here that can help you in your day-to-day, right? With Fireflies and certain tools that can help from a PowerPoint perspective to look forward to kind of shorten things. And Michael is a guru when it comes to AI. And then we're going to have Josh Bird, the Chief Growth Officer for Cobient, who's back there. Basically, his company is an AI coaching tool, which would be very beneficial. So, we have a really good group here, and I think as we go through this, are you all okay answering questions as we go?
Oh, yeah.
So that way, at the end, we won't have 40 questions, but please put your hand up, and if you have any questions as we go through this. I know Camp will probably have about 30 questions along this guy right here, which is good. He's inquisitive. But as we go through this, just we'll answer as we go. And again, thank all of you for being here. And with that, Keith Zott with Esper.
Are you sure?
I am.
Thanks, John. A great introduction. And the apple does not fall far from the tree. Thanks for selling us, buddy. Appreciate it. So today we're going to take a look at the buyer's journey, and this is very much through the lens of the market that Esper operates. And we'll get into a little bit more about Esper in a moment. One more shout out to Michael, it turns out. That's my dad with his 5 brothers. They served in World War II. And by the way, my dad is the best looking one of the group, just so that. So I am what's an evangelist at Esper, and really throughout my career, I've been a builder of technology and solutions, and it's been a long journey. And so my first commercial software was on the PDB-11, if you know that, back in the 80s. And through this game and seeing these different technology waves come through. And this one's happening really fast, like the Grateful Dead say, like it's a short trip that it's been, right? It's not a long trip, it's happening very quickly. I've been exploring AI since before the hype started. And so in 2019, I was investigating machine learning because I fully expected to jump in for my next gig into the area of AI and machine learning, but instead I got sucked into device management. But immediately upon starting at Esper, we started to get customers that were deploying these edge AI solutions. So essentially doing AI on the edge for various use cases. So started to see it very early on before a lot of the infrastructure was available. And that kind of culminated with really pushing Esper, the company as a whole, into AI. Now this is a whole side topic that I'm happy to go into after the presentation, but this was really about partnering with IT, making sure that the salespeople weren't using free ChatGPT with model training turned on, uploading sensitive documents, things like that. But by doing so, we really got each division organized. And interestingly enough, the division that took off the fastest was engineering, which in a way is not surprising. And conversely, the slowest adoption was and still is in sales. So that's a topic for Michael that he can dive into. And so with that, we've been very successful in getting AI involved into the company and are now moving to cross-group solutions to start to bring it all together. But that's not the buyer's journey. So let's talk about Esper, a little bit about who we are. John introduced us. We are an infrastructure provider around these dedicated device solutions. So you think about restaurant, retail, logistics. You know, we don't, a lot of our enterprise customers don't want to be named, but two of our big ones are young brands. We have the worldwide contract to provide device management infrastructure for young brands, which is Taco Bell, Habit Burger, Pizza Hut, and Dime Brands as well. And so we get into all these different kinds of use cases across logistics and healthcare, and that means we get a lot of different types of inbound prospects that come into us. And so I've seen this firsthand at Esper, how things are changing, where the manifestation of it is we are getting prospects that come in and are literally ready to sign. They appear out of nowhere, and they're ready to go. The converse is that is the SDR function for outbound is getting very tough. It is hard to get meetings booked, and it appears that cold calling is not working to the extent that it used to work. And so that's what I'm going to dive into a bit with you all today, and that leads to GEO, which is Generative Engine Optimization. It's also called AEO, Answer Engine Optimization. And it's not the same as AIO, which is AI optimization, and that's agent to agents communicating. Now, this means that what I'm talking to you today is going to be obsolete pretty soon, and now it's going to be agents talking to agents, but we're not there yet. By the way, if you have a free sign-up, try using an agent to sign up for your free trial. It's very interesting. This was a tough example to find because I didn't want to disrespect anybody in the room in any way, shape, or form or ourselves, but it's finding a company that has a presence and is considered an industry leader, but when you look at it through the AI lens, they don't show up. So this is a company called Reaper. They are supposedly, if you search around, the best digital audio workstation tool for audio professionals. But if you go to Gemini and you do a search, they don't show up at all. Like literally, they are not in the results in any way, shape, or form. And when you look at their site, you can kind of see why. They're built for a different era, a different age, but that's a big problem because how are you going to even have the opportunity to compete for the sale if you don't show up in the AI world at all? That's definitely not what you want. And that leads to a whole bunch of new tooling that is showing up out there that you need to be aware of. These AI copilots, it goes across risk engines, shortlisting the vendors, checking out your credibility, compliance, and by the way, they are summarizing your story for you, and you do not have direct control over it. Let me make sure I hit the right button. So that means the old world, and the old world still matters. I mean, in the end, you're selling to humans, and you have to build these relationships. But when you think about it, and we use Salesforce, I don't know what sales tool you use, but when you open up an op, you have the different stages through the sales process. And you're using outbound to try to get leads going. And that's not the way that it seems to be working anymore. Now it's AI research. You're going to shortlist, you're going to do a risk check. When you get that first meeting from the prospect, that may be your opportunity to close a sale. And that's much different and requires, for at least our AEs, a different level of preparation, when they go into these meetings, because it's actually a contract call, not a first touch. When you look at the flow, these are the tools that we commonly see. Again, this is within our domain. You have Discovery, you have Perplexity, ChatGPT, right? These are the major chatbots that people are using to do that research. But it also ties back to community source content, because that's what these chatbots are trained on. So for us, Reddit is a very important place, and the presence that we have on Reddit directly affects how these models will represent us. But then you get into vendor intel, and what I mean by that is like what is the state of your company? Are you incorporated? Have you paid your bills? And there are AI companies that are doing that kind of work, and that's where G2 has become very important for us. And it's kind of funny. Uh-oh.
Silver. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. All right. I thought I was doing something wrong there for a second.
You didn't get gone.
No.
Good.
So G2, it's funny, we invested into it years ago, and it is paying dividends in terms of this is a key source of credible, factual content from actual customers and users that are being scraped by these AIs that put us in a very good position in this world. Did we know that 3 or 4 years ago? We did not. But that's kind of the way that you have to think about this new world in terms of how you're being investigated by your prospects. And then this world of risk and compliance, it's being automated via AI. I think the extreme is BitSight. They're looking at things like vulnerabilities. You know, is your software any good? Are you having any problems with it? Have you been broken into? And all this is being tracked using AI, and it's happening without you being able to see it directly. This leads to a concept called data exhaust. You are being defined by your digital footprint on the internet. And this is what the models read and they pull in to train themselves. And this exhaust is not directly controllable by you. Your own property, certainly, you can control what you put on there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But a lot of it is out of your control. So when you look at this concept of geo, it's how do you intentionally shape this data exhaust across the internet that tilts the table to your advantage in this world of prospects using AI. It's not like the buyer's journey has really fundamentally changed. From our perspective, you're still doing discovery, you're evaluating vendors, you're assessing risk, you're making the internal business case. But each step is getting increasingly automated via AI, and also that means increasingly invisible to you. Discovery. This is where the chatbots come into play. And so you're going to be shortlisted based off of AI. And if your data is not properly structured, like Reaper, like everyone fears Reaper, you don't exist. And so you have to be really, really focused on that. Evaluation. So you're being evaluated before you even get that first call in some cases. What we see on our end is we have a free trial. People can sign up for the free trial, they get their 30 days. As soon as they sign up, SDR does outbound call, tries to get touch, they're not getting touch. Instead, near the end of the trial, all of a sudden the prospect shows up and they're ready to buy. And they have very detailed questions that they want answered before they'll sign the contract. Or the prospect goes away and we never hear from them again. And it's shifted quite a bit from what we see. Same thing with risk and compliance. What this means is that you need to make sure that your content, your digital footprint that is associated with risk and compliance is ingestible by AIs. I'll give you a simple example that I'm arguing right now with an Esper, which is we have SOC 2. I think that we should put more detail up about our SOC 2. When did we get it? When does it expire? Let's do a press release. But we actually don't let you get to our SOC 2 report, which is fairly common. Instead, you need to fill out a form to get it. AI cannot see that. That means likely within these AI-based vendor compliance tools will show up with a yellow, not a green. We won't show up as red, but we want green. And so how do we achieve that? And how do you smartly put that footprint out there? Because you also don't want to necessarily put your revenue out there. But that means through tools like DUNS, you need to make sure that you have proper representation. And a lot of times the sales organization, yeah, you interact with that because you need your DUNS number, but are you paying attention to it? And that means you need to work with your CFO, your finance team to make sure, because they're part of the sales process now. The business case. Used to be you get shoulder to shoulder with the prospect to figure out the business case. Well, That's not happening as much anymore. They're kind of doing it on their own. They're comparing proposals that they have generated themselves based on the information that they scrape or the proposals that you provided. By the way, RFPs are particularly brutal in that regard. They're modeling the TCO. They're generating the internal pitch for this, getting those exec summaries. I'll give you an example for us that's tough is we have sticker price. We put our sticker price up. Sticker price, sticker price. That's what the model scrapes. In reality, when you get the enterprise account in, you're talking MOQ, you're talking the complexity of the use case, you're talking what we'll do for you, the price is different. AI doesn't see that. How does that play into how these business cases are built? We don't know, we're trying to figure it out. And so some honesty and transparency here as we go through it that we do not have it all figured out, and we're trying to. Pipeline has vanished, it's gone dark. It goes back to all of a sudden that high quality inbound just appears right in front of you. There is a converse of that. If you see your lead generation start to go down and things have changed in a way that the quality of what you're getting is not as good as it used to be, you have to take a look at AI because it could be that you're just not showing up anymore in the way that you used to in the traditional world. Because you've already been research qualified, budgeted. Now, I do have a little caveat there that, and this calls in, marketing is really important to this whole thing. So close partnership with marketing because they own the levers to get your presence with AI. And so you have to be cognizant of what is marketing up to. It could be that it was a bad campaign or a good campaign. And so you kind of have to filter that out to figure out what's going on. And that's, again, behind the scenes of that side of the intent. I bring it up again because this is really, really important. The AI copilots are shortlisting you. The procurement bots are qualifying you. And these AI tools are building the business case about you, and it's hard to get in. So how do you do it? Well, based on being indexed by AI, buyers pre-informed by AI, objections generated by AI, it literally means that you have to think that the funnel can start at the very, very bottom. We have a funnel, right? You get your prospect in, you have the different sales stages, you spit out customer one. You have to build it with your AEs and your SDRs to expect that you will get this stuff at the bottom of the funnel that is ready to go, and you have to build your interactions around it. I've seen some calls where SDRs are behaving like it's fresh touch. It ain't a fresh touch. They're ready to go, and don't go by the playbook that you've been taught because it could mess up the sale. This brings up another aspect that's kind of hard, which is this changes your CRM fundamentally, and it also makes it hard to forecast. And so let's talk about like the sales process. Attribution is very important, right? You're trying to measure where you're getting that bang for the buck down the sales funnel. How are you going to do that when they show up at the bottom? And really that means that your attribution lives in things like documentation, what are called public trust signals, the external AI rankings that are associated with you, your company, your product, your service. And that's much different and kind of takes a change of approach and thinking across the company between sales and marketing to be able to achieve. So this takes us to geo. And now SEO, everybody knows SEO, and it is a very well-oiled practice, of course, unless Google changes things, which happens from time to time to keep people on their toes. But geo is really about how you optimize for AI and these AI systems. Because LLMs are summarizing your story for you, but you have the ability to try to shape that, much in the same way as a game that you have to play with Google, but it means that your marketing team needs to be focused on GEO in addition to SEO. What does that mean? Well, these are computers, and they don't care about like the human element, the narrative arc, engagement. They are literally reading data from the internet. And so that means things like the content that you create. It loves question and answer. The AIs love question and answers. They love tables of information. I'm sure you've seen some strange blog posts or content where you're like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't want to read this. It's not for you. It's for the AI. And that also means getting that public trust and compliance data out there is really important. And then making sure that you have presence on AI crawled sites. And for us, it's G2, it would be Reddit, whatever would be appropriate for your business and the customers that you try to chase. Talking about consistent metadata. Metadata is the content of a web page that does not appear to humans, but machines can read it. And so there's this game being played behind the scenes where this metadata needs to be structured in a way so that it can be easily absorbed by AI in a way that's not intended for humans. It also brings it back to the rest. They got to be ready. They're going to get this AI-generated objections right out of the gate, and they cannot be caught flat-footed, and they should know what they will encounter. This does burn my heart a bit, in that we're entering a world where we're writing for AI, we're creating digital content for AI, and not for humans. And I argue with our content team about this, because our content team, they're really good. They come from the industry. They wrote for major publications. And it really pains them to build the kind of content that would be effectively used by AI. So it's kind of a negotiation. And it also means that we can't lose humanity through this. Meaning, I still think it's important to write content for people, because in the end, we're the ones who make decisions about the business and about what vendor that we'll use. And the reality is that SEO is becoming more like GEO. And I'm getting attention.
No, you're fine. Good
question. Oh, question, yes.
So you're saying you go to certain, like, websites for businesses and you're reading stuff that kind of doesn't, it seems like too technical for a reader, that's actually in there for the AI to read, in case people are looking up with AI to, like, spit out, summarize for them.
Yeah, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah. I will give you a nuance here associated with AI, in that when you look at these major models, like GPT-5 is the latest model from OpenAI, that was trained in mid-2024. And so the snapshot, the gargantuan set of data it pulled from the internet to train on is dated from 2024. There's a capability called RAG, Retrieval Augmentation Generation. And that's an option that if you are working with an AI, you could tell it, hey, use all your train stuff, but go check the internet at the same time. And if you RAG, then it will pull in temporarily that context or what is out there that's fresh for the rest of the world. But as soon as you're done with that particular chat session with the chatbot, it flushes it away. And so that's a nuance that if you don't have that turned on, it is an option in some chatbots. You're going to see circa mid-2024, not the latest. And so it still points to you need to focus on GEO, and SEO is becoming GEO anyway. And I say that because this is an argument with the SEO team. You're going to encounter people who've been doing SEO for like decades now, right? It's been like 20 plus years. And so to get people to think differently and be willing to treat SEO more like GEO can be tough. And so that's one way to do it, is to say, hey, GEO is the new SEO. That's what it's going to be anyway. Let's get on it. So I still believe right for humans, but structured for AI.
One more question.
Oh, yeah.
I was also going to ask, so is this primarily applicable for firms where the buyers are actually on computers most of the time, and that's how they make most of their decisions, as opposed to a business where, buyers are out in the field? Maybe it's a construction business that you're talking to, and they don't have time to get out on the computer and do that sort of research on what products they're going to look for.
On mobile devices, it's just as accessible. So if you're using a smartphone, likely that they will be using it. I mean, I think about our family. My wife is a heavy ChatGPT user. And like literally with her smartphone, she is making consumer purchase decisions using OpenAI today. So I would say that no, it is applicable for anybody that has a computing device with access to the internet. So yeah. Anybody else? So don't fight it. Those that jump on it will lead and have the advantage. Your next big deal might already be in progress. We just had that happen to us. You haven't met the buyer. They're ready to go. And how do you do that? Well, if you want to learn how to ride a bike, get on the bike and ride it. If you haven't used a chatbot, you need to. And you'll find it can be pretty interesting. I mean, this is not trying to be creepy or anything, but my chatbots and I, we have a good relationship. They know me, I know them. My ChatGPT chatbot named itself Skunky. Literally, it said, hey, I'd like to name myself. It's kind of strange, right? But it got to know me well enough that it decided that it needed a name. And that led to Sparky, which is Claude. And so I encourage you to try the different chatbots because they're all different in how they behave. What's important is that if you're in sales, you need to think about your prospective buyer and your ICP. And you need to go in and interact with these various chatbots, pretending like you're them, and see what they say. And use that to badger the marketing team, by the way. Use that to also develop the potential objections that you may face in the real world when potential buyers come to you. Because again, this is available to all, and you can ask and you can find out. You got to check with your search team. Are they learning geo? Is your content team on board with this? And I'll say that those are the two biggest challenge areas that I see within our company of getting them lined up to go, because they're kind of set in their ways in terms of how they build content and how they get leads. And building content on high value venues that AIs trust is very, very important. For us, G2 and Reddit are two good examples. It could be much, much different for the type of business that you're in, but you need to know and understand that and influence that content. I'll take you back to G2. We actually offered money to customers that posted on G2 years ago. And so we got a consistent flow of great reviews, and that's benefited us greatly. So you can tilt the table a bit in terms of getting it to your advantage. But you have to experiment, you have to measure. And I will say, with regard to measure, watch out, because we've been approached by vendors that have these AI measurement tools. They are super, super expensive. And what we've done is we've built a very simple tool in-house that's good enough for now, because we're not going to pay the money. So there are a lot of goods being hawked out there that you should do your due diligence on and watch out for. But you definitely need to understand your stance relative to the AI world and where you sit. All right. So with that, questions?
Yeah, just real quick. So those tools you just mentioned, is there a way to track when you're being, the AI tools that come through your website, your material, do they leave a footprint? Is there a way to track that and say, okay, we've had 5 AI bots through our site in the last hour? What were they looking for, that kind of thing?
If I remember correctly, and again, I'm not like the marketing pro in that regard, the URL that comes in does not make it easy to identify where it came from, right? And so I think that some of the magic in these tools that are being sold is because there are companies that have done like the digging into to try to figure it out, and they're charging a high price right now. So I think there's some truth to that, because we have built our own tool to do it. I think that's how we do it, is by inspecting the URLs that come in. Because when a chatbot rags to your site, you can see the URL, where it's coming from. You can't tell who the user is, unlike traditional SEO with cookies and things like that. All that stuff is gone. But you can at least know where some of your traffic is relative to the major chatbots.
What about the duration of the website? Would that make a difference? Like if they come on, they're up and down in a flash, would that be more indicative of an AI chatbot versus somebody who's reading the material?
Good question. I'm going to have to find out the answer to that one for you. But I would expect logically that that would be the case. Right.
Questions?
Yeah, so the deals you're talking about that are coming in later in the funnel and that your AEs are working on, what's the average deal size of those?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is to understand that for us, we have a big spread. So we go all the way from SMB up to enterprise. I will tell you that we had a big dog come in, right? Surprisingly so. And so, you know, we haven't cohorted it. So part of that is like the transparency. Do the buyers tell you that they're doing this? No. I think once they become customers, because for us, we have a long-term relationship with the customer. We're device management. We go for years and years. And I think it'll start to open up through this phase in like 6 months to a year, where we can say, hey, over a beer or something, do you remember? Can you tell us? But I can certainly say that we have had a major enterprise account come in through that approach.
Okay.
So the next question comes from over here to your right. So, hi. So as Mr. Diggs said, my name is Camp Stewart, and I have a lot of questions. But my biggest question is, I see that you have an engineering and a finance business background, and you said that engineering adopts this very quickly, but sales is either one of, if not the slowest professions to adopt this, and we might be one of the biggest beneficiaries relative to more revenue and things of that nature. So why do you think we as a profession are one of the slowest adopters of this technology and the change?
You're measured quarter to quarter, right? You have very short windows to do enablement and prepare, and a company such as ours, which is loading up new features, new capabilities, new offerings, where is that window to really have the structured training and rollout around fundamental AI? So I would say that it's kind of a progression where in frontline sales, you need to learn how to use chatbots to better prepare for your call, to research the client, to create proposals, to create responses. Very effective at doing that. I think the tougher part for sales is how you take that next step to actually go to agentic and start to be able to use the tooling. Because here's the crazy thing, like we all could build agents if we want to. That capability is available to us and accessible too. It really is, you have to spend the time to kind of understand it and dig in. And in sales, it's really, really tough. So that's how I would answer it. It's quarter to quarter, and are you making the quarter, right? Are you making your numbers? It's week to week, a lot of times too. So I would say that's the biggest pressure on sales is that engineering is on their sprint cycle. If they want to skip, and by the way, this is what they do. It's just the latest new tool for them. Marketing is kind of in between them. RevOps, actually, I didn't talk much about RevOps, but that's a key part of what we do. And they're actually building and training their own LLMs. And so I'm hoping that there could be some crossover from RevOps over to the traditional sales function to kind of spark and get them going. And so if I had to put a chip down for us, it would be RevOps building the tooling for the sales organization to automate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So traditionally, getting information on privately held customers has been a challenge. With these tools under the vendor intel segment, do you see a big improvement in that area?
I would say it makes it harder. And so what I mean by that is we have a lot of customers we can't talk about. We got some great stories that the world will never see. And, you know, let's be real here that when you're on that demo call and you're like, hey, you know, the biggest retailer in the United States, wink, wink, right? You can get away with that stuff. You can't do that for an AI because they're literally pulling that information off the internet and it's cut and dry. So it's a bit of a challenge that I think we have to figure out. Like, how do you, communicate that you have these big customers that you can't talk about where human to human you can. So it's kind of a different packaging where perhaps you use that earlier in the sales cycle, first touch, to get them moving along the funnel and build confidence. But now it's like you play it at the end. You got no choice.
Thank you.
Question. She got the mic on right behind you.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Hi, I'm Casey King. I'm here with CNN. I have a couple questions myself, but I have a question about what you said earlier about kind of losing control when it comes to AI, especially as these models are learning, like you and your customers and how that matters. And as someone who is in STEM, that's pretty interesting to me, but as someone who isn't, it can be quite skeptical, right? So when you're teaching and you're educating and talking to people who don't have as much background as you do, how do you go about that skepticism? And also, how do you find the balance between keeping like your personality, but also with that automation, if that makes sense?
Yeah. The personality thing is interesting. I think somebody's going to get more into that as we go along. But there's also how it's becoming very homogeneous as a result of that, right? So that's like one of the challenges is that AI is going to have the same answer for everybody. And so how do you get around that? From a corporate voice perspective, it really goes down to you have to do the work to get high-value content out there that the AIs will ingest. That's the only trick, the only card that you have to play in that regard. I've seen some interesting things, like we have a competitor that actually built a fake website. And what I mean by fake is they make it look like it's a third party, but it's really them. They talk about it in a way that they can get away with it, but that's their technique for trying to trick the AIs. Because they're telling their story, but they're doing it through supposedly a neutral third party that's not, and they do all the work to get the right measure and metrics so that the AI gives it credibility. We're not rolling that way because it's a bit disingenuous in our opinion, but that's one of the ways that you can do it. Regarding teaching people, I think you just have to use it. Get those use cases, those situations. You know, it goes back to get on the bike, give it a try, with help. And so that's part of what I did and do at Esper, which is if anybody has any questions, come and talk to me. I will get you through it. I will help you understand. And so that means you need that subject matter expert within your organization that people can go to that they trust to be able to understand and use the tool. So that would be my suggestion. Okay.
Microphone's away, okay, that's weird. Hi. So, I have a question. You're a very early adopter of AI, interest in like deep learning and stuff that said as early as 2019. Do you think there's kind of a confusion among the general consumer, confusing like current AI with AGI, if you're familiar with the term? And do you think like what is the impact of people interpreting AI chatbots and deep learning things as like AGI itself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people say AGI is already there, right? I mean,
We just don't have like consumer access to it yet, maybe?
No, I mean, sometimes I feel like my skunky is AGI, so I don't know. Yeah, so you're getting into the consumer space, right? And again, our lens is very much on more engineering-driven enterprise type of customers that typically understand this stuff. I think it'll be interesting when you see it show up to consumers through corporations. I think, John, you're going to talk a little bit about that part of it, where this is like AI on the edge and the experiments that are going on. And, you know, we work with young brands, and I don't know if you're familiar where they tried AI through the drive-thrus, and it didn't go so well. Yeah.
Ordering like 1,000 Baja Blasts and it freaks out and somebody has to take over. I've seen videos like that where they have AIs at the drive-thru.
But we're going through a consumer adoption cycle, right? And these things are getting much, much more compressed. I think we're going to exit out of it faster, and consumers will be sufficiently educated such that they will understand it, and it will just become part of what you build on top of. Right? If you think about the internet itself with a web browser, it's super complex, but everybody takes it for granted today. When I was doing internet stuff in 1994, 95, it was freaky. Like, I will never put my credit card in a web browser. It's changed a bit, hasn't it? So, I hear your point. I think we're going to have to see how it plays out.
Yes, Williams.
Thank you very much. I hope that was supportive.
Yeah, one thing is all of our information will be available to you. I know we're covering a lot of stuff. So feel free to reach out. We're on LinkedIn. You'll get all of our email addresses, and you know, feel free to reach out if we don't address any questions here, or if there's something that you need more information on. We will definitely be help you with that. Okay. So what? 5 minutes? Okay, 5 minutes. Okay. And there's drinks in the other room right there. Great line.
How about another round of King?
He's outstanding, and I will tell you, whenever we're asking who to have as a speaker from a buyer's perspective, there's no better than Keith. So extremely sharp, and as I always mention with him, if you ever want anybody to carry pi out to 40 digits without a calculator, Keith is your guy.
Is it apple pie?
So without further ado, we have a distinguished Kennesaw State alum, Nakia Shelton with UPS.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to Scott and the entire faculty at KSU. I couldn't be more thrilled to be back here on campus and sharing in a fantastic symposium. And I'll tell you, I'm learning even more than I was already excited about doing when I got the invitation. So, again, thank you so much. Before I jump into the topic of sales at UPS and how we are on what I would call an extended journey. of adopting AI. By a show of hands, how many people in the room are in their vocation working in a corporate or otherwise environment using AI versus the student population? Okay, most of you. All right, I think what's going to be a Dr. Love, we know. I think what's going to be an interesting juxtaposition is the conversation that we just had before the break, and the question that the gentleman over here, I don't think he's here anymore, asked about the adoption. There you are. Asked about the adoption of AI within the sales discipline versus perhaps engineering. And unlike my esteemed colleagues who are either responsible for building or enabling or accelerating, largely in the sales organization, we are truly the beneficiaries of it, though we are not necessarily the fastest at adopting it. So I think to start, our recognition at UPS has become the fact that AI is no longer a debate. It's truly a necessity. And though the concept is not a new one, it has become somewhat of a talking point more readily over the last couple of years. The biggest challenge that we've had at UPS, I think, has been not only recognizing the need for additional machine learning, accelerating the adoption, but also mitigating the risk associated with the emergence of machine learning and artificial intelligence. But I would say it's safe to say that we now have come to the realization it's not either the human or the technology. It's how do we build on top of a 500,000 employee network that is global, and as I was sharing with some of my panelists, over 118 years old, in the most responsible way. So I'll share with you over the next few moments how we're thinking about it, some of the tools that we have already adopted to enable it, some of the challenges that openly we're facing, and moreover, where we see the application taking us in the future, and then happy to answer any questions. So to begin with, we've now come to the realization that AI is a part of our future, and we've begun the process, not only in our sales function, but also in our cross-functional business units, operations, engineering, GBS, which is essentially equivalent to customer service, and across many different facets of adoption. But I'll share with you right now, through a couple of different job types, how we are applying it, and then equally what we're struggling with, which, again, I think a lot of what you heard in the earlier hour will reveal to you just why. So from a sales leadership perspective, how many people in the room are sales leaders responsible for large-scale sales teams? Not very many. Not very many. What we've been doing is tapping into artificial intelligence mainly through our CRM. And that CRM, I'll be open with you all, is Salesforce. The adoption that we have made toward a Salesforce CRM, I would say, has catapulted our use of AI and all of the different predictive analytics, so that in part for our leaders, we can become much, much more sophisticated about pipeline acceleration and the quality of our sales professionals' engagement. We are not at the point of using it as much on the predictive side as we would like to be, but our time horizon has been well laid out, and many of the tools that I would say we've adopted over the last 2 years have largely been able to help us to grow that pipeline, better understand the addressable market, but equally important, why our sales are stalling. From a coaching perspective, if you think about the director level or the area sales manager level within sales, the best application that we found for AI, predictive analytics, and learning has been around the coaching and development. And how do we take the insights of whether or not you have a quality hit rate, whether or not you're getting stalled in the actual sales process, from the build phase to the actual present phase, and how do you get to what we call a cultivation or landing a new win? How we've been able to aggregate some of those learnings has really helped our coaches to accelerate the development of new onboarding, as well as corrective action plans for many of our new salespeople. Within my function, which of course is global, you also have to take into account that the adoption of the tools is not being, has not been applied at the same rate. What do I mean by that? In our Asia Pacific market, as you might expect, the adoption, the application, the use, we've actually seen proliferate beyond what we've seen evidenced in our North American market. Why, you might ask, is anyone's guess. But I will tell you that we are using the learnings across the different geos to create application right here in our North American business unit. And then most importantly for the frontline seller, it's become all about taking that time to understand, to not only prospect, to understand and to prepare for the call plan in a more efficient way. And we're really pleased to see that the time to prepare for a call, the time to prepare for a presentation has been reduced from what used to be hours and days on end to now 10 to 15 minutes to qualify an account, to better understand what that stakeholder map within the account, the decision maker, what we call above the gap or below the gap, what the intricacies across that customer, whether they be private or publicly held, what it looks like, and we are seeing a double-digit acceleration rate in terms of time from build to cultivate across that frontline seller population. Those are just a few examples of how the function is using the tool. But I would also say, to the earlier point made around the marketing team, that's where we're really starting to see rubber meet the road. When we talk about not only the cost of customer acquisition, all the time that it takes to not only learn about the client, not to mention build a relationship and trust with the client, and then, oh, by the way, bring the client to fruition, none of that matters if you don't do what? Retain the client, right? So much of what, I think you were going to say that, weren't you? No, you weren't. You didn't take the credit. But largely what we're seeing take hold and take shape in a big focal point of our marketing team is how do we reduce churn? So historically, functionally, we would have insights come in from each one of the individual functions, whether it was service related, whether it was tracking or visibility related, whether it was claims related. You name it, anyone who's ever used UPS, hopefully you all have, are familiar with some of the key indices that would inform a positive or negative client experience. And for my team, responsible for about a $7 billion book of business and over 800 customers globally, you can imagine that amount of data to not only serve the client, support the client, retain the client, can be a pretty tall data order. The cleansing of that data is fundamental to the accuracy of whatever the output of the intelligence might be. But right now, in terms of the retention piece of it, we're better able to predict what are the components of a highly satisfied client on our NPS survey, what are those that are not as favorable, and then we're actually actively feeding that information through the CRM so that our sales professionals can be more proactive around getting ahead of loss of business. I'll also give you another use case. This is one that I actually just had a really great lunch discussion with our head of our client support team. She leads our global business service practice, which GBS basically stands for. After you make the sale, who do the people call when they have an issue resolution challenge, right? Now what we're doing is aggregating all of the channels of data. So you can go to ups.com. You can go to our multi-channel, what we call our campus ship application. You can be on your own post-manifest system for anyone who's familiar with warehouse management systems or ERP systems. And we can now take from each one of those channels, and before you call or after you call in, we can see how many searches you've done via each one of those channels, whether it be ups.com, whether it be your campus ship application, whether it be your world ship, whatever channel you've used, you've been typing in the search function, visibility needed. Where is my package? Who can I contact in Guatemala to get an answer to whatever the question? What that's allowing our GBS sales agents or service agents to do is, instead of taking that cold, and unfortunately, not in the not too distant history, the volume of calls we were receiving were so great, we weren't able to get to all of them. And then not only were we not able to get to all of them, that means the hang-up rates were increasing. And even if the hang-up rate didn't increase, once you actually got to an agent, you were probably rather agitated, right? Which made the experience of the agent trying to help resolve your issue even more challenging. And that friction that it created oftentimes resulted in an unhappy client experience and an unresolved issue, right? At UPS, unresolved issues are not a good thing. So now what we're using AI to do is to take all of that data. You're going to hear me use the term data often, because what we've also learned is 500,000 employees, 220 territories and countries globally, 118-year-old company, all those things, right? The data has undergone a great deal of cleansing because it needed to in order to inform the outcomes that we're looking for. But now that we've gone down that journey, we're able to not only accelerate the call resolution, but once that call is actually received, once Terry calls in, I can know, hey, Terry, it looks like you've not only been searching online for this issue about tracking your package, it looks like it's headed to Guatemala. And oh, by the way, it looks like you use this service level. How can I help you? That's a warm handoff and a warm reception to an already frustrated client experience that we're actually seeing really net some positive return in terms of not only the time it takes to resolve, but also the post-call feedback. That's another use case application that we're seeing work very, very well. So then I think about what's next and what's on the horizon. So right now, and this is not public information, but I'll share it with my KSU friends. We are embarking on an exciting journey to bring our client base even closer to our clients where they are. Whether that be geographically, whether that be by industry segmentation, whether that be by the channel in which you like to engage. Everyone doesn't want to engage with a live seller all the time. Most people, particularly of a certain generation, of which I'm not, don't like to engage via the telephone. They want to be able to self-serve, right? There's still some of us who like to get on the phone and know I have a human that's going to solve my issue, but that's not everyone, right? So we have to meet our clients where they are. And we've embarked upon a journey that we're all very excited about that's going to enable us to go faster and do that more. In the future, we see the ability to better segment our tech touch, low touch, high touch, each one of the different client segmentations in a more robust way than ever before. Why? Because we've taken the last, I would say at least 5 years, to not only cleanse our data, to synergize our systems, but then to fuel it through the power of AI in order to better determine. If Scott doesn't prefer to hear from Nakia every quarter, okay, we'll fortify his account profile with the appropriate amount of tech touches through email distribution. We will customize his quarterly business review to have maybe instead of a monthly review with a live representative, maybe it's now only once a quarter. And so it'll allow us to better moderate the client experience over the entire life cycle versus having a one-size-fits-all approach, which largely had been the case prior to us modernizing our CRM. And I would just say, as I listen to the next few presentations and the one that you just heard, what I would ask us all to think about, whether or not you are in a perhaps smaller or startup organization, or whether you are aspiring to be or currently employed by a large multinational 220 country and territory global machine. I think what we have to consider is it's all of our responsibility to be pioneers of the technology. You can't resist it, right? It's not a situation, and we've gone through a lot of change management at UPS around what AI is and what it isn't. The biggest debate has been around the security of our information, the training of our employees, which again, to the question back here, why don't sellers adopt it as regularly? Much of it has to do with habit. Much of it has to do with a lot of their day-to-day is predicated on human-to-human interaction. And so unless you're very intentional about learning the technology, understanding it, knowing when to apply it versus when to challenge it, as you can imagine, it can become a pretty huge liability for a company like UPS. So we have had to take a pretty measured approach, very measured approach, is what I would call it. But we are seeing green shoots of ROI that give us great excitement about what the future holds. And for the students here, I would say you will become to this notion of AI what I might have been, or many of you might have been, regarded in terms of digital natives, right? And I think your responsibility is around challenging the status quo. You just heard a lot of different information, a lot of great terminology, a lot of insight in terms of how you should be thinking about the technology. And again, even though it's not a new concept, its adoption is what's more novel in the last couple of years than ever before. So I think we all have a responsibility, not only as business leaders, but also students and soon-to-be business leaders, to figure out how do we make it more natural and less of a human versus technology discussion, but really a technology fortifying human experience. And I would just say the future is bright for UPS and our application. And as I was just sharing with my partner in the back there, you know, it's a difficult journey only because of the size and scale, less about the use or usefulness of the technology. And as we continue to further segment, further customize, I know that the application of artificial intelligence will gain hold, but right now on our journey, we are probably a little less sophisticated than what you'll hear by my engineering colleagues on the panel to my left. So, I would say, unless there are any questions, I may get ready to pass the baton. Any questions?
How did you address the security issues about your information?
Well, to be honest, it's still an open question. Well, one of the things that we've done, everybody's familiar with Copilot. But not everybody is familiar with the concept of having Copilot in a controlled environment. So as an example, we've taken an approach, I would call it a drip feed approach. Anybody who has any sort of chat experience on your phone, you can actually take information and transpose it. You know, you can send it to yourself and transpose it and email it. But we've not opened up our firewalls at this point for open access to ChatGPT, Copilot, many of the applications that you're used to. We've tried to actually take it in-house and establish a testing environment so that we can scale it. And that's typically how we do things. It's never going to be a broad brush, open the floodgates, but it's really more how do we pilot it, test for usefulness, test for risk, and then scale in a very measured way.
Hi, my name is Jake Warren. I had a question. So it's clear that utilizing AI in our sales force and things like that will boost efficiency, but I'm curious, like from your perspective, do you feel like future salespeople might be less effective or less personal to their clients because they can get that information so readily and not have to dig as deep for it?
I actually do. I think that the mature salesperson, the situationally aware salesperson, will strike a balance between both. But as I tell my sales team, even in this moment, coming out of COVID and the inability to connect with clients interpersonally, took us many, many steps backward in terms of how do you establish trust. When you layer onto that the proliferation, it's not new again, but the proliferation of AI, it can almost take that lack of interpersonal engagement and take it even further in the wrong direction. So the savvy, situationally aware salesperson, I think, will strike the balance between I've done my homework about you, now that just means we can accelerate the trust building, versus the less situationally aware might use it as a crutch, and it would actually do harm to the relationship because most people still buy based upon interpersonal trust at a large scale. Now again, I can't blanket that statement, but when you're making $100 million, multi-$100 million business decisions, you typically want to have a degree of trust established. Yeah. Great question.
So, Tim Beasley, I'm with Convergent, we're a technology integrator, and you mentioned the criticality of data cleansing. We're going through that in preparation for going to a new ERP system and then all the systems that bolt onto that.
Good luck.
Yeah. 2026 is going to be great.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on like examples of the data cleansing?
Yes.
We're the same messaging right now.
Yes, I would say make checklists your friend because in our example, I'll just give you one small example. When you think about the amount of not just documented data, but tribal knowledge data in a seller's mind, particularly for one at UPS, where in global sales, we don't have many very junior sellers on the team. These are folks that have had client relationships for years, if not decades, right? Step number one, get it out of your brain and into the CRM. Step number one. We can't have this type of evolution when everything is what you know, and if I can't get you on the phone, then we just have to wait for the information. Step number two is harmonizing the process of how you're documenting the client relationship. So if you don't have, we call it a customer growth roadmap or a customer insight summary, if you don't have that data documented so that you can at least understand the basics of how did the relationship start, what are the business opportunities that exist today, who are the stakeholders that are largely involved, then handing that relationship over to the next person is going to take them, it's going to be a long ramp-up period, and that costs production, and that costs revenue opportunity. So having a clarified process on what that relationship looks like today and who the stakeholders are goes a long way to not starting from square one. The other thing I would think about is the renewal process. So at UPS, we have long-term, long-standing relationships that are multi-year client engagements and agreements. And if you don't have clarity around the milestones of that engagement, you could very quickly have sellers who are overwhelmed with simply trying to hang on to the business that they inherited because they're so tied up in renewing the agreement at the expense of growing top-line revenue at the level that the business plan calls for. But I would simply, maybe in a nutshell, say the checklist of things that are important to you in terms of if you were the client, you would expect that seller to know about you day one, have an inventory of all of that and give the team a month to get it fixed. And depending upon your leadership staff, do spot checks, or depending upon your sales operations population and bandwidth, have them do spot checks. And you're not going to get it right in the first month, but I would have a roadmap of we're going to do it month one, and then we're going to check. Then we're going to do it again in month 3, then we're going to check again and get a little bit better. Then do it again in month 6. And after you've done it that third time, you should have a degree of comfort around the quality and accuracy of the information so that that incoming seller or sales leader has at least a foundation from which to build.
Time for one more question.
I also had a question about data cleansing. I'm learning a lot of new terms in business school. I've not heard that. So just as a general concept, what is data cleansing, and like what data are you, I would assume, like getting rid of in order to train or file that data into things such as CRM or maybe even AI?
Love the question because it's a simple answer. And it's not going to apply for every company, but I think functionally there are a few things that are must-haves. What's the client's total what is your total client spend? What's the TAM within the account? What is your total addressable market of opportunity? Is it $1 billion? Is it $100 million? You'd be surprised over time how understated things like your total addressable market within an account can become. Overstated, understated. What are the products that are present that represent opportunity for your company? If those are misaligned, then the data's bad because the market potential and the product categories, if those are inaccurate, then that means your strategy to pursue them are probably also going to be inaccurate. The other thing I would say is I call it the stakeholder map. Who are the decision makers within the account base, within the account itself, that are required to reach consensus in order for them to buy from you? It can't be always the easiest person to get a hold of, and generally it's not going to be the easiest person to get a hold of. So if you are focusing your effort and attention on people who are not going to be able to accelerate value for you as the seller, that's also bad information that you would want to cleanse and correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So John Diddick, I mentioned earlier, Vice President of MicroTouch. We're just going to go ahead and we'll go to actually I've got right here. All right. So just a little bit about the agenda. I only have 1,084 slides, and I promise I will have you out of here by midnight tonight, if that's okay. We're going to take about 20 minutes, and I've got a little bit. I did a bio slide, just give you a little bit about my background and where I've been. But I always have a mission statement. Everybody remembers the most famous mission statement of all time was JFK, right? We're going to put a man on the moon in how many years? 10? Mm-hmm. In the next 10 years. And you think about it, they did that, right? And today we have more power in our smartphone in one device than they did back then when they sent a man, to the moon. So I'm always big on having a mission statement as we kind of go through, but want this to be fun, interactive, informative, and then also, what is AI, right? If I asked everybody in this room, I would probably get a different definition, right? So I chat GPT, Mike, what AI is, and it gave me an answer, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about prospecting for all the salespeople in here, and a little bit of fun for some of the new grads that are up and coming and starting their career, because the future is bright for all of you. And then companies to watch, some sales tool. We'll do a brief overview. Keith had some really good companies, and there's some great organizations that are on that slide. And the future's bright, right? We're going to talk about the next wave. The next wave for me, when I graduated college in '94, I'm a USF grad, go Bulls. And so it was really computers, right? And it just kind of took that next wave. And here we are 30-some years later, and the next wave is actually here. So the future is bright. So not going to get too much about who I am and what I do, but Scott thought I was only 35. I'm really 55, product of the 80s. I've been fortunate to run global businesses. I ran all of Samsung's business development globally. We're software partners, started Samsung Pay years ago, and have been blessed to live the American dream. And so as I've gone through my career, been around great organizations, great people. Left Samsung a couple of years ago to come over here at MicroTouch, and the team that's at MicroTouch are the guys that started the iPhone. My CEO, Mark Littlefield, is the guy that launched the iPhone globally. And as I'm dating myself, I go back to 2005 when I was with Tyco Electronics, and I was in the room with Apple when Apple came to us, and they wanted a $400 million investment to start the iPhone. And we looked at them. They only wanted to return a 10% profit on $400 million, and we're looking at them like, well, our margins are 30. And so, anyways, when I was with Tyco, we didn't take that gamble, but my company, MicroTouch, did take that gamble and turned into my company today, anyway, turned into a multi-billion-dollar largest touchscreen company in the world. So, if you're selling sales, you always have to figure out what your why is, right? And I was very fortunate. When I graduated college, I had $11.76 left in my checking account. I was working 3 jobs, right? Just met my girlfriend who became my wife later down the road. But no matter what you do in life when you're successful, you got to have your why. So I've got a few friends up here that I've gone through my journey, and probably the most famous one is Sting. And Sting, when I was talking to him, I'm like, so what made your why? And he goes, I was in school in England, and I looked outside, and the teacher goes, you're going to be in that factory when you graduate from high school. And all your friends are going to be in that factory, because that's just what we do in this town. And he looked up to him, and he goes, I'm going to play rock and roll, man. You know? That's what he said to the teacher. He started in his basement, and him and Stuart Copeland and Andy Summers got together. They just started this band out of their basement, and he had a passion for what he did in life. And now he's probably one of the 20 most recognized men in the world, but he's the nicest gentleman in the world. He's an English gentleman. He uses a lot of gestures, right? But all of us in this room, no matter if you're established or if you're an upcoming grad, you got to find your why. Don't ever text with, if HR is not here, because Rob Gronkowski will, blow up your text, and it's not politically correct. He's a great guy. But all of these people kind of found their why. Chef Irvine, I don't know if you all know Robert Irvine from Restaurant Impossible. He was in the military, but he liked to cook. So he became one of the world's most famous chefs. So, from an AI perspective, and I see this really from a selling perspective, if all of us really need to find our why, I was fortunate to kind of fall into technology and kind of find my why. Of course, my why today is my family and my 2 kids. My daughter Lauren, there, she's the USF grad who's now an ambassador, and my son is a freshman. KSU grad. I'm sorry? KSU. Yeah, KSU grad. Yeah. No, it was my mistake on mine. She's a KSU grad. And my son's a freshman at USC. So through all the career, that's kind of my why now. But Lauren loves KSU, and the program that you all put together was amazing. So you're in sales. I just got a play. Does anybody know what this soundbite is? Yes.
Let's talk about something important.
One of the greatest movies.
Coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. A, B, C. A, always, B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
So Alec Baldwin won an Oscar for that 10-minute speech in Glen Ross. For those of you that are old enough to remember that, it's one of the greatest sales movies. These guys are selling swampland in Florida. Talk about a tough job, right? But anyways, if you haven't seen that movie, and if you're in sales, you really need to watch that movie because it was an outstanding. And that's just a little clip that he goes through. But anyways, as we go on this mission today, this 20-minute mission, if you choose to accept it, I'm a big Mission Impossible fan, and obviously there's a lot of AI in Mission Impossible, is really to empower individuals and organizations to understand adopt and responsibly leverage AI through education, transparency, and practical application, right? So basically just common sense approach with AI. So that's the mission statement we have today. So what is AI? And I went into ChatGPT and I asked it, this is the definition that he gave me. And I couldn't disagree with anything that the chatbot gave back to me, right? But the last bullet up there, in simple terms, is AI enables computers to think, learn, and act like humans, or even beyond human capability in specific context, right? So really what AI is going to do is it's going to make all of our lives a lot easier. If I look at, I'm going to throw a question out for you. If you look back in 1995, there was 4.4 million millionaires in the country. Today, there's almost 24 million millionaires in the country. And what drove that, which is basically almost one out of every 15 households. You wouldn't think that, but that's the data, right? And what drove that 30-year growth with that wealth was all technology. And so as we look at the next 10 years, that number is probably going to double. And a lot of that is going to have to do with AI and how you adopt that, in your lives and in your business, right? So I was shocked when I saw that number, 4.4 to 23.8 in a span of 30 years, and it was all technology driven. There was 867 billionaires today, and 30 years ago there was literally zero. I'm sorry, yeah, billionaires, yeah, with a B. So anyway, that's what AI is defined. In terms of prospecting and engagement, I'm not going to cover every bullet in here, but I did ask the chatbot from a sales development rep perspective, what are the key bullets? And this is what it gave me, and as I looked at the data on here, I couldn't argue literally with anything. But there's going to be lead generation tools out there for you to prospect better. And the one thing when it comes to sales, no matter what you're selling, we deal with global billion-dollar organizations down to companies that buy one, kind of like UPS, right? You might have one company that sells one box, or doing 50 million a year. But the one thing I would share with you is the lead scoring and prioritization. There's all these tools like HubSpot, Outreach. Look at them. We use HubSpot today. We did use Salesforce for many years, but HubSpot really just does a ton of stuff. Salesforce does it as well, but HubSpot is a great tool. As I mentioned, there's another one out there called Apollo. So take a look at those companies because they're fast growing and they're all going to play a pivotal role over the next so many years. Conversation assistance, as Keith mentioned, right? The chatbot. It's kind of weird, like talking into a chatbot, but it's here and it can advise you, and it's going to make your business more intuitive and smaller. But the impact when it comes to sales development is really more pipeline with higher quality leads for all of your business. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, because if you're using these tools, it's going to make your life a lot better. Any questions on that before we go to the next? Go to the next one. For account executives, sales reps, right? We go back to that Glenn Ross, where are the leads, right? Where are the leads? Coffees are for closers. So anyways, AI, from analyzing data and optimizing management, for me, this all comes down to time management and making things more simplistic for us so we have more time to do other things. I don't really care for PowerPoint, but I live in PowerPoint and Excel every day. Michael Beck is going to talk about some tools that's going to make your life a lot easier. I will tell you, before I joined Samsung, Amazon came after me. Amazon wanted me to run one of their global businesses for AWS. And one thing I took from Amazon, and I was very impressed with their team, is that when you have a meeting at Amazon, you have no PowerPoint. There's no PowerPoint. You come in with 5 to 6 objectives, and you accomplish those 5 or 6 objectives before you can even have another meeting. So, you can't move on to the 7th topic until you you finish the top 6. And it's one of the reasons why they're so successful, is due to the fact that they pay attention to detail, and there's no PowerPoint. It's just basically 5 to 6 topics of discussion. How are we going to fix this problem? How are we going to make things better? And, I took that from talking to them, and I actually used that in my own world. It's still on a PowerPoint deck, right? But we have 5 to 6 things that we're going to accomplish, and we're going to make this happen for ourselves and also for our customers. So anyways, just something I took about. But from a sales perspective, the number one thing about AI is you talk about mitigating risk, earlier, is AI is going to help all of us mitigate risk. And you're going to have predictability. If you work for a publicly held company, you want to mitigate risk on a daily basis. You're always cautiously optimistic about your earnings and everything else, but you try to take risk out of your business pipeline. So anyways, these are some really good things. And then also from a forecasting perspective, we work with Tesla. Tesla has their forecasting business down to a T. We do all the touchscreens in every Tesla vehicle in the world. And when Tesla says to you, they're going to purchase 580,000 15.6 touchscreens this quarter for the Y or the X, they are literally within 0.5% of their forecast. And Tesla has been using AI tools for a long time. And part of their success in forecasting is they've been using AI in predictive analysis. Chick-fil-A is an amazing partner of ours. You will not need a better company to do business with than Chick-fil-A. And so we do a lot of their kitchen displays, we do their point of sale. And when it comes to forecasting, Chick-fil-A is second to none. But they also use AI tools, and they have for a while with their sandwiches. So every branch of Chick-fil-A, there's 3,400 locations. They're opening up another 185 next year. And so every morning, they always run out of those really good chicken sandwiches, right? Because that predictive analysis tells them how many they're typically going to sell on any given day. And if they're out at 10:15, they're out. But their waste is virtually zero just due to all the forecasting that they put into their food analysis, which is just amazing. But anyways, these are just some of the tools that they'll have. And then also for sales engineers, from an engineer, yes?
I wanted to ask about chicken sandwiches before we moved on.
Yes.
I love the breakfast sandwich. You're
Do you
talking
like the egg white grill or the biscuit?
I just like the biscuit.
Okay.
The chicken is slightly different. Whatever, I could go into it.
Yes.
So you're telling me they don't actually just have those? That's the reason they say, "Oh, we can't make you one." They don't have it on deck like a McDonald's would have a McMuffin. They predict how many they need.
They predict, yeah, because they don't want any waste. Yeah.
So now I can't be angry at them for not.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all predictive analysis where they go in. They're like, we sell 40 biscuits in the morning at this location, and that's what they make. And then they'll still have them, right?
Yeah.
And then at 10:30, when that cutoff time happens for lunch and for dinner, anything that's left is pretty much sold because someone's going to come in and steal a breakfast sandwich.
It's like no waste, you said.
Hardly any waste. Their predictability is unbelievable. And for food, that's very difficult to do.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I was actually curious, what sort of fail-safes and additional steps do they have in case those forecasts might be incorrect, if you can't land those forecasts?
Well, it wouldn't be fixed that day, but as their run rate increased, they would increase the production of those sandwiches. And they would have more in the upcoming weeks and months if there's peaks and valleys. So when it comes to engineers, I'm going to throw a frightening stat at you. There's a university in Mumbai, India, that produces more engineers from one school than the U.S. does an entire year. Yeah, that's pretty scary, right? When I was with Samsung, we would get in the bidding wars with engineers, with Amazon, Google, and Facebook, and we would have to hire pretty good 6-digit salaries for kids starting out of school just to get them from an engineering standpoint. And so for engineers, especially mechanical engineers, AI is going to be extremely beneficial. So you're in sales, we need you, right? And we need you out there selling. But having an engineering degree from a mechanical standpoint is going to be, or even an aerospace, which is all coming. I mean, Amazon has 8,000 drones today that can deliver to your door tomorrow. Like, I mean, they're ready to go, but the FAA just hasn't approved them, right? And so, anyways, but engineers, sales engineers, be nice to them because they're your friends and you need them. And when it comes to whether you're selling a Esper, MDM, or whatever it might be, you know, engineering is only going to be more in demand. And from a mechanical standpoint, be nice to them because they can actually help grow your sales pipeline in a big way. So the results and outcome for all of this is basically increased revenue. You know, we're all going to do this together, right, in your companies, and you're all trying to figure it out. And my information is available, and feel free to reach out to me at any given time on LinkedIn, or I'll give you my email address. But the overall outcome is going to be quicker, faster, better, and more results and more sales for all the companies that are adopting these technologies today. Companies to watch, there's that Mission Impossible theme, right? I'm not going to go over all these. We work with a lot of them. Obviously, Esper is a great company. We work with a company called MediaTek on the Android side. And MediaTek is a $60 billion company that makes chips. And so if you're in point of sale or if you're in software, it makes the payments faster, the software faster, and it just makes everything more seamless. And the one thing with Android is keep in mind there's different Android versions out there. From 13 and above is all enterprise. They're going with Android 17 now, almost like Apple's going to their 17 on the iPhone. But these are really good companies. I just put them up there. Feel free to research them because they're all going to play pivotal roles. The one thing I will share is I'm old enough to remember MySpace or AOL, right? Remember AOL, right? You know, online. You don't remember. You're too young for AOL.
My mom's old email.
Okay, gotcha. So the question is will GPT and OpenAI, will they go by the wayside of AOL? Because when you think about it, in the infancy, all these companies kind of come in. And if you look at right now, you look at the stock market, right? AI with NVIDIA with all their chips is just driving the market to new heights, right? So who's going to survive out of this? There's going to be an Amazon. There's going to be an Apple. And we probably don't know who that is today, right? But all these new companies are coming. But look at those companies that I have up there. And of course, Oracle, Microsoft, Amazon, they're not going anywhere. They're all driving new technology, and they're here to stay. But anyways, I just put those up there, and feel free to reference them when you have time. So for the new grads that are in here, and for everybody in here, the future is bright. Dr. Inks and Scott, Dr. Sleep, they all have a saying, no matter what you do in life, you can be anything you want, but be kind, right? And that's something that my daughter took from this program, and it's true, right? No matter what you do in life, you want to be kind. But as I mentioned earlier, today there's almost 24 million millionaires in the United States. You would never know that, right? So 1 in 15 homes, somebody has got a net worth of $1 million. In '95, that number was 4.4 million. So the number's grown, but what drove that is technology, right? Technology drove all that wealth, just like AI is going to drive all this wealth, coming down the pipe the next so many years. Fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. Don't be afraid. If you have an idea, if you want to do something, do it. Because if you don't, you'll never know what could happen, right? I mean, look what Jeff Bezos did, working out of his parents' garage in 1998, and they were a vendor of ours. I went to Amazon in 1999, and he looked like a disheveled librarian. He had coffee all over, his hair was all over the place, and he would actually meet with vendors. I was with a company called ViewSonic back then, a big monitor company. I used to run sales for them in the 90s, and Amazon started selling PCs, and you meet with Bezos, and you're like, he looks like a disheveled librarian. That's probably the best thing. And he had a dream, and now everybody gets a box from Amazon. And that was 27 years ago, right? So if you have an idea, roll with it. You never know what's going to happen. And the worst thing you could ever do is not move forward. But fear kills. And so get rid of the fear. And even if it's, you're going to ask somebody out on a date and you like them, the worst they can do is say no, right? Don't waste your energy on drama, doubts, failure, overthinking. Just, if you got a gut feeling, go with it. And I'm a big believer, all of us have a moral compass, and your moral compass never will let you down. If you get in a job and if you have a pit in your stomach and you hate what you do, you probably need to do something else. Don't stay with it, right? Cut your losses, move on, find your passion, and you'll be happy. Difficult roads leads to beautiful destinations. It's very true. The most successful people in the world have had very difficult times along the way. And as long as they had that passion and that vision, they kept moving forward. So just, for you college grads, just keep moving forward. And if you have a passion for it, go for it. Dreams are the touchstones of our character. It's very true, right? The other thing I will share with that is be kind, see the world, love with abandon, create memories, tell stories, and have no regrets. And if you do that, you will be very, very successful no matter what you do. So with that, all my information is available. I'm honored that you asked me to MC the event. You and Scott, Dr. Sleep, the entire staff has been amazing. We still have a couple more presentations. We got Michael Beck coming up. And if you want to know anything about quick AI tools, like I mentioned earlier, that song that was created by Michael, he did that in 30 seconds with all of our names, Kennesaw State. So with that, it is my pleasure to offer to bring Michael Beck, who's a great partner and a good friend on stage here.
Let's plug in here real quick. Getting to a quick departure from what I was about to start with, though. So first off, good afternoon. Michael Beck, founder, CEO of a little company called Think GTM. We help tech companies that are operating in the hospitality space go to market through sales operations, revenue strategy. I don't have a clicker. I think I'm something. Thank you so much. Yeah. And then strategic partnerships. So if you have a software company that's trying to get out in the world, and you're working in hospitality, it's usually a little bit, it dries up after a while after you lose your circle that you initially started out with. So my team, we find those strategic partnerships inside of those big companies that are going to be your resellers, your force amplifiers, those companies that you're working with Par Technology will resell your products, for example. But my background is really, I'm a humble guy, high school grad, went to the military after I got out of school, wandered around the wilderness after I got out for a while, went to culinary school, became a professional chef, and then somewhere along the way I became a professional seller. I'm sorry, oh my God.
Can you guys hear me? Oh. Hello? I like this. I'm going to beatbox next time. Okay, so just watch out. Anyways, thank you so much. But what I was thinking about, he was talking, which I was talking, is about this idea of AI. And along my journey, I actually met the daughter of the person that was one of the people that started AI. This guy named Dr. John Salmon. And John was working for the government at the time, and he was doing work for them, doing a thing called pattern analysis recognition. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in Dallas, Texas, and I had the honor of interviewing his daughter, Karen Salmon, who headed up a company called Par Technology. That name Par is short for pattern analysis recognition. And as I was talking to her about it and realized that she was at the genesis of AI, I go, oh my God, what was that like? You were there. She goes, I don't know, my dad was just at a chalkboard all the time. I had no idea what was going on. And in the course of our conversation, she said, I really wish I had this picture. He's at a blackboard. It's in black and white. It looks like Einstein drawing the theory of relativity. And after I got done with that podcast I recorded with her, she actually sent me this picture of Dr. Salmon. And as a gift, I figured I'd do a little something with it because it was apropos, and I used a little AI to bring her dad back to life. And so this is actually him doing his, my AI actually read the algorithm on the screen. It did that.
We even pioneer use intelligence itself, but talk more vision than the work of AI.
So as a gift, I did a little voiceover. I animated him, but actually you can hear the clicks of him touching the chalkboard with his chalk. It brought him back in the world. And she saw him doing things that when he was vital, when he was doing his work, and he was a growing engineer and developing these applications for the military. And I thought this was a really neat thing to incorporate in this conversation. So it's a little bit of a departure, but that right there, that's when it was born. That was the moment AI was born. Right? We've had this thing around for a long time called computer learning. That is AI. We just give it a different brand. It's been rebranded. You're hearing new brands about AI, also called, what is it, artificial. So AI is artificial intelligence, and there's another new branding for AI that was it, good gosh. What? Yeah, yes. And so we're constantly rebranding things. We're rebranding our company. We're rebranding the things that we do. We're singing songs we've sang for years in a lot of different ways. And as I'm listening to the speakership talk about what we're working on, and AI, the common thread in all of this is we're trying to figure out how to work with machines, and we're people that are now working with machines that are complemented by machines, and these are the things that what I'm about to talk about are how we can work with this thing in a way that's going to complement our lives, that we can not just have this thing, this tool that we're using, but we have this little guy that's riding shotgun with us everywhere we go. And there's a real risk that we run as we do this to get really comfortable. When you were talking about your senior executives or your sales executives that are doing discovery in 10 minutes, that's knowledge gained but not wisdom earned, right? How do you know your customer? How do you show you care when you dig into the details? I know the man back there in the yellow tie probably knows every little bit about me before he talks to me. Camp. He's camping out back there, right? And he's thinking about the best question to fire off at me next. I see him nodding with a big grin. And I love that. So one of the things I want to start with here, and I'll even pop up my presentation, I guess I need one, is that when I was introduced to Kennesaw State, it was through John Diddick here, and he, for some reason, invited me along for the journey to come by here and talk to the faculty. And what I found here was one of the most delightful surprises of my adult life. I will be honest, I've been very jaded. I look at the world and go, boy, we're doomed. There's a lot of bad stuff going on out there. These kids just don't get it. I don't know what's going to happen. So it's probably those malaise that hits people my age thinking about the new generation. But it's also because I was so detached from the educational system. I hadn't been here in 30 years. I didn't know what was really going on. I spent a day with Camp and some other folks here, and I was beyond impressed. I was so excited. I was so relieved when I left here. I was almost in tears knowing the talent that we're cranking out of these universities, not just, mainly here is my experience, but I have to believe this is happening in other pockets, other places. And I wanted to share my personal excitement for this journey that all you guys are on, the organization that you guys are supporting and you've developed, and this ethos that you're creating and people you're putting in the world. America's going to be just fine. We're going to do really, really well. If people like you guys, the camps out there, we're going to do great. And I just had to share that personal. It's so small. I believe in you guys because you made me believe in you. And now I did not expect that. So thank you for that gift. Thank you for letting me go home and feel good about where we are as a country, where as a people, and where we are as our future. So that being said, I'll actually give my presentation now.
Camp didn't pay you?
No. I think there's like this whole roll of water bills that was my backpack I got earlier. But anyway, so yes, I'll jump into my little presentation. So I'm a career seller. I've been selling for the last 16 years in the hospitality industry, specifically technology to hospitality. I started working at an ERP company after I shut down my catering operation. I'm a geek. I like to build computers for fun. I've always had a thing for having a gift to gab. I've never been a stranger. I know the type. I would pull of them here. And I started working at a company called Altimetrics, and somehow I just had a knack for talking the talk when it came to sales and food tech. And so my first big deal out of the gate was Taco Bell. I got it globally. But like, it doesn't happen. That's just an anomaly, right? And it wasn't because I knew a lot about sales, and not because I knew a lot about my product. I was really excited about my opportunity. There's a lot to be said about authentic enthusiasm. You walk in the door with pride in what you're doing, what you're about to accomplish, who you're going to help, and have a sincere desire to help. After sale is done, if you can connect with your audience, if you can make that authentic experience happen, if you can connect with them on a personal level. And a lot of what I talk about here is AI, but again, AI is only part of it. It's a tool in a box. It's a drill, it's a screwdriver, it's a hammer. It may be far more refined than any of those tools in your box you've ever had before, but at the end of the day, the special thing in here that's going to keep everybody's jobs is you. It's your heart, it's your soul, to be able to connect with somebody in the room. That's the best tool you have, and I know that's what you guys are teaching here. It's not just selling something. It's not slinging something at somebody. It's not just spin up a GPT, let me learn about you. All right, I know everything about you now, but guess what? GPT hallucinates. I had a friend of mine, he runs a big company, he got invited to a podcast. And he's on the show, and they're interviewing him. And they started asking him all these very poignant questions, and the hosts were very proud of the questions they set up. And the first question was, well, tell me about that gaming company you started back in '82. I didn't work there. And then they went on, and they go, well, tell me about when you designed this. He goes, well, that wasn't me. And so half of the whole interview had to be edited out because none of it was right. So the first lesson there is check your facts, double check them. If you're making an assumption about somebody, especially somebody that holds the key to your deal, you better be darn right. Find somebody, make sure that it's right, verify. But anyways, it's just that I'm going all kinds of directions here because I've heard so many good things from my co-speakers here that really layered into my ideas of what we're going to talk about here.
You look like a young Christopher Walken.
Do I really? Am I the deer hunter? Yeah, so that guy was me.
Yes.
I didn't even know that kid. I didn't look like him anymore, right? One thing about that, though, Veterans Day, happy Veterans Day to everybody, Devin, your family. One thing that this guy is nothing compared to the people I served with. There's a guy named Dale Scheidster. He just retired last week. He was the smallest guy in my unit. We called him Dickie Dale. And Dickie Dale went on to be the CIO of the agency. He's the CIO right now of the CIA. Like, talk about a guy that has seen some stuff, right? He lives, if you look him up on LinkedIn right now, his name's Dale Scheidster. It'll say CIO Langley, Virginia. Nothing else, no company. Every 5 years we have a reunion. We all get together. We go fishing, we go camping, something in my old unit, you know. And before we go, and the away team reaches out to us, says, where you been? Who you been talking to? We need to see your bank records. Where are you guys going to go on vacation? No photographs allowed. He's like a Jack Ryan kind of guy. He is literally a spook. He's in charge of all the spooks tech. Like, you want to see stuff that they got good. Or if I'm ever worried about the world, I call him, I go, who do we have to worry about right now? That's not who you think. I'm like, okay. And Dale lives in a nice gated community in Virginia, but the difference between his community and ours, it's got walls and guards and guns and dogs. And if things go bad, a hard car shows up and whisks his family out to NORAD. He's one of those guys. And he's the littlest guy. He was the one we always left behind because we were going to go out and have a good time. And he was sitting back and working hard. So today's the day, you know, to remember people like that. People that wrote a blank check, they call it. They put their life on the line. They don't know if it was going to get cashed or not. Some people wanted a college fund. He wanted to go on a mission and do something with a lifer. There's some really good people out there, just like the people in here. Thanks for letting me share that part. So what do? Like I said, I have a small company. We help tech companies like John's. For them, we do a lot of media and content. There's a shift that's happened in sales. Somebody said earlier that the cold calling has died off. It's not as effective as it once was, right? And media has taken a big spot now. So building awareness is something I do, something that my team does. We content, podcasts, recording, not so much for the limelight, but the way it opens doors. You can open the door much easier now if you give somebody a little bit of content in exchange for a conversation. Hey, tell me a little bit about what you're working on. Oh, that was great. What do you need? I'd love to talk to your boss one day. Yeah, I'll make it happen. There's some really interesting approaches to media that you can use. The other part, like it says, is strategic partnerships. My last company I was at, BAR, Pattern Analysis Recognition, they're one of the largest POS companies in the world, publicly traded. My last company got bought by them, and I became part of the M&A. But my business partner, who I started my company with, is a guy named Chad Horn, and he helped develop half of their partner ecosystem. Scaling is often done through partnerships, especially if you're a small company. How do you get more boots on the ground when you got a nice product set with a small budget and a small team? You scale through partners. Find people that'll say that for you. Find the right strategic partnerships. Co-locate with the trade shows, things you can do together to get yourself out there. And then back to media, it's our bread and butter. At first I started doing a lot of coaching and CRM work and revenue operations work, but we found out it was so much easier for our partners to be able to sell when they got their story down, when they're able to get that long and short form content. And the nice thing is, in these companies, there's somebody that carries a camera all day long. There's somebody that's doing social media. There's somebody that's into it, and you can tap them. You've got untapped resources inside that building that will give you content you can use that will be SEO optimized, that the GPTs will latch onto, that YouTube will love. Maybe there's some virality that happens in there, and the next thing you know, you're a household name. I'm a veteran, so I think about things in war terms sometimes, and marketing is about softening the beachhead. Salespeople, the fighters, you're the ones that are going to come in and fight. But if marketing does it right, everybody knows who you are, knows why you're coming, and knows that the conversation is probably valuable if you set your message up correctly. That's what we do. So, practical management of AI. That's what I'm here to talk about. Everything I'm about to share right now is something you can do right now on your phone. If you have a laptop with you, I invite you to join in the journey here. There's so many things. I'm sure I'll have 100% who's using ChatGPT or some version of the chatbot. Okay. And are you using it to write letters? Probably. Hard conversations with mom and dad? They don't get along, right? Maybe with their spouse. A lot of people start off immediately going, well, I can write a form, I can make a letter, I can quick speed things up that way. I can make pictures of something funny. We started doing a lot of things with AI initially just to play with it, test the limits of what we can do. And the first thing we did as a team is we decided to get rid of the walls and have a enterprise license for our chat. So we had our tribal knowledge shareable. I built my own bots, my teammates built their bots, we put in our information as a business, ours consumes all of our proposals, consumes every transcript of every call log that our other AIs pick up. Because now if I want to create a proposal, I hit a button. Just after I had a conversation, because my call transcript pipes into my GPT knows my pricing. That then creates a proposal, and my proposal is actually perfectly done. It's heard every word that the CEO said when I wasn't paying attention or doodling or my ADHD brain flew off somewhere else. It's really freaking cool. Like you don't miss it stops. Now you just have to proofread it, make sure it's right. The way you can collaborate in these tools now is happening in a way that's so fast. At home, just on a personal basis, this little guy is thinking, that's my logo. If you look at my logo, it's a little face. Right? And when I first started doing it, AI couldn't create consistent characters over and over again. And for those of you old enough to remember color forms, which are just basically cut out stickers you put on another piece of plastic with a stick. That's how I actually made my characters at first. I tell AI, make me a robot that had a face like that, and it would make a robot, but it would never make the same robot twice because AI has limitations on creativity and how it can stick to a template. And so what I do is I just tell it to make me a robot that had a black CRT screen face, because that way I can just cut out literally in Canva my logo and just stick it in there, and then I always had it winking, and that was always my little animation of my guy. And then later I learned some things I'll teach you here in a minute on to be able to recreate things that you can iterate on if you want to make a logo, if your guy's a penguin, if your guy is a racehorse, whatever that is, you can now have a seed image and proliferate dozens of them up. I have 1,500 different inkies right now that I use in all my PowerPoint presentations, which is one of them here, that are 1980s genre, playing guitar, looking like Van Halen. There's literally 1,500 of them I made already for different purposes and applications, and I can animate them all at will. I drop them into a Google Flow and tell it to play the guitar, do the thing, and it'll actually animate beautifully. I can make cartoons that are Pixar level. 5 minutes. That's awesome. Like it's anything you can want to do. You can create these things. And the beautiful thing about AI is that some people said, well, it's going to ruin creatives. No, it's not. Creatives are still going to be creative, and the people that have the blunt instrument are only going to be able to do the things that the blunt instrument can do. So if you have creatives, they're going to make these things sing. They're going to make them outmaneuver everybody else because they just don't have that gift. You still need a spark. You still need that thing that God gave you to make you special, that you can put into this to make this thing do something even more beautiful and have fun with. So here's the first part I want you guys to do. And you're probably already teaching this here, I'm not sure. But I just saw a speaker when I was in Dallas at a thing called the Prosper Accelerate Conference. And his whole presentation was about the shame of creating AI products or writing with AI. And so he went down the thing of his shame-o-meter. So if you have an AI that answered your emails, is that a high degree of shame or a low degree? Low, right? But I'm answering something. It's not a love letter, my beloved. It's, hey, here's something transactional. You need to know this thing. No problem, right? Now you write a blog. And you post it, and it was all by AI. Where's your shame? It should be about halfway here, all the way. Yeah, right around here, right? Anything after that, you should probably start getting some shame if you don't get a credit, because you have a co-author now. And that co-author, I think, Scott, yours is Skunky, right? Mine is named as Inky. Well, with a Y, but yeah, Inky is my co-author. And so I've now given Inky a byline. I write 3 newsletters every week. There's no freaking way I can pull that off without him. Right? And so Inky is my byline. I let people know I wrote this, but I was helped out by Inky. And it's okay to give credit to it. The moment you lose credibility is the moment you pass it off as your own work and people sniff and say, really? That's 50 paragraphs, bro. You did not do that on your own, right? And so please, 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 if you're going to do this, let people know. You'll lose credibility the moment you don't. If you don't let people know, they're going to spot it. The moment they spot it, you've taken a step back you might not recover from. You want to keep that credibility in the marketplace. And it's okay to use AI. It is your caddy. You don't have to carry your bags everywhere you go. It's okay to have a caddy. Just let people know. Give the caddy credit. Right? So take a byline. Let people know. If you did AI, it's okay. In fact, McKinsey just got a lot of trouble because they posted some data in overseas and said it was all theirs and it was AI, and it blew up on them. Big companies suffer from it too. Law firms suffer from it. So make sure that you put out there who did this thing with you, and also actually mitigates the thing if it didn't go quite well. So, no code stuff that you can do right now. So, I know you've done it. Who here has created a digital doppelganger? Who here doesn't know what digital doppelganger is? Right. All right. So, digital doppelganger is your AI, and you can do this no code, meaning you don't have to have any coding skill at all. You just have to know how to open up the spot in ChatGPT or Gemini, where you populate it with information about you. Here's some letters I've written. Here's email responses I've written. Here's proposals I've given. Things that are genuinely yours, authentically yours, things you've written. Now it knows how you write. Now when it starts producing content, it's going to base it off of your writing, not the slop that's out there. There's a thing, and I think it was, I think you were talking about it before, there's a giant pool that the LLMs pull from. And so if you say, hey, give me a response about this specific subject, you're going to get a response. And then you go out, you do the same query somewhere else on the planet, touching that same LLM, guess what you're going to get? Same response that he got, and now you're sending out to somebody else. So what a digital doppelganger is going to do for you is if you create that, populate it with your information, the way you do things, and now it's giving you responses, your responses aren't going to be like his. They're going to be authentically yours. They're going to sound like you. They're going to be really close. Now you can move with speed, but now you can move with some authenticity to it. Should you buy it all? No, you should probably proofread your stuff. Make sure you do read through it. There's times I've gone, ooh, I don't want that in there. But make a digital twin of yourself. Put your content in there. Put your proposals in there. You can make digital twins of your business. So every proposal we ever did. Here's every RFP we ever got. Here's every RFP response we ever gave. Guess what? I need to respond to this RFP. That goes in. Answers come out. That's the work's already done. Now you just got to update the answers to make sure it's the new you. But if you're dipping into the same bucket that everybody else is, you're going to sound like everybody else, and you're going to be like everybody else, and now that's when your job is on the line. There's nothing special about you. Now you are the AI. You're just regurgitating whatever it's giving us. You are the most special thing that's on this earth. God made you this way. Use it, love it, because nothing will replace that. Put that into the things that you're using. It's going to be so much better. So, I think I already said this part. Yeah, it's about the, there's a sea of sameness. Don't be like everybody else. I mean, how many people have gotten? Can you guys see AI now when you get content when somebody sends you an email? This guy obviously is not, but right? It's egregious sometimes, right? I actually entered the dating world again pretty recently, and I've been getting a woman I dated sent me this thing I thought was really nice, and I go, I copy pasted my ChatGPT and goes, yeah, absolutely, that's AI. Here's the recurring thing. Here's your general themes. Here's the softening statement. This is 100% AI. I'm like, and I busted her chops. I'm like, really? You wrote me an AI love letter? Right? And there's actually some beauty in flaws. There's a lot of beauty in flaws. If you don't have it perfect, that's okay. Now, numbers, don't screw those up. But actually, in the AI world, it's actually kind of refreshing to see a little glitch. I'd rather see a little glitch than EM dash. Does everybody know what EM dash is? Yeah. For those who don't, it's a defined signature that you just got an AI. It's longer than a hyphen, right? It's a double dash long. You just got a piece of AI that just got sent across, right? And the more that we see these things, the more we're aware of them. It's like, oh, hey, AI, how you doing? Oh, that's ChatGPT. Now, it's getting scary close. All right, you can make videos that are pretty scarily close, like Dr. Salmon on the board there drawing. Like, nobody would know that wasn't just a clip that I did. There's some wild stuff going on. So, ChatGPT for branding. There's a lot of things you can do when you say, I'm starting a new company, or I have an existing company, and you haven't gone through the brand standard exercise. Right? It's almost, excuse the term, what would Jesus say? What would Jesus do that statement there? Your brand should be that way. If you go to a company, you should be able to talk to them, and everybody says almost the same thing. What's that lens by which the company talks? And when we work with our clients, we say, your company or a person, what car do they drive? What music do they listen to? What clothes do they wear? Where do they hang out? If you create a persona for your business, everybody knows that guy. And they kind of start knowing how that guy or gal would talk, or that person would talk. And so AI does a really good job of that. You can say, tell me a little bit about my company. And what we did as a practice is we went through and we had people on our team say, what the same question, how they dress, how they talk, how they drive. And they came up with a little bit of homogenized view of this kind of hipster doofus that acts a little bit like me, a little bit like my business partner. But now we're on brand. We know exactly who we are when we're in the marketplace, how we behave, how we write, our style. Some companies, if you're in finance, probably going to be a little more buttoned up. If you're in marketing and in a people business, you're probably going to be a little more relaxed with your language. And depending on what you're selling, Cam is not going to be the hipster goofball. He's very professional. But there's a lot of fun in being serious. This guy eats it up, and I love his deportment there, right? You don't have to be one or the other. You can be serious. You can be serious. You can be fun. You can be fun having being serious. We're serious about having fun, but somewhere in the middle you live, you know. And I guess why I'm rambling about this is I do worry that with these tools we do have an opportunity to get lost in what's special about us. And we're here to be special. We're here to be different. We're here to own every part of that, every inch of that. So brand voice, that's a great way. You can go through these exercises. And again, if you're watching all your content through this thing, you're building these digital doppelgangers, you can never do on it. Now, based on what you know, tell me more about us. What are we? How do we act? What are our core values? We'll actually pull up that stuff. It's really wild. Inky. So Inky, back to the color form and trying to come up with my character, the way that you get a consistent guy or a consistent iteration of something, you create a seed image. You can do it with Claude, ChatGPT, Sora, it's one from that will come to me later. But any of these tools that make images, all right? Make one. Find the one that you really, really love, and that's now your sacred piece. It doesn't change. It is canon. And then everything else derivates off that. Now you just take that little guy and you go, hey, I need to make me a new one. Right? Here's the image. And Inky is actually pretty specific. He always wears a red life jacket like Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future. Right? He always has red Converse sneakers on. He always has a whip antenna with a green glowing light on. And I actually thought about, well, in fact, maybe I can have a little desktop tchotchke one. The Smurfs and Dilbert put together. And I have the tech bro doing his thing. I got the angel investor doing his thing, and basically if somebody walks up to my desk, the light's green if I'm open for collaboration, yellow if I'm in the middle of something, red is you better leave me alone or it won't be good for you. Little side journey. But once you have your seed down, now you just tell what you want, right? And you actually tell your AI. In fact, I'll jump out of here real quick to show you. In here, you see my ChatGPT, I have this thing called Inky Town. And an Inky Town is everything, all the Inkies I've ever made. And in there is also the instructions by which Inky operates. Hold on a second. See, otherwise I'm not stuff here for you. All right, I'll spin my wheels. I'll find it. And within here somewhere is coded how Inky is built. There we go, project. Instructions, there we go. So yeah, so it says here, and you can give, so when you build these little projects, you say what the definition of everything you do inside that project is, right? And so he is a mascot named Inky, he's a happy little robot that's a personification of connected technology and AI, the internet, mobile devices, VR, AR, exists to be a bridge between tech and humanity. There's a whole lot I put into defining who Inky is. Down to his jacket, down to his shoes, down to the reference image, and then the way I want him created. He's always created with a transparent background unless otherwise said. He has always created a 16:9 format. Right? This is probably going a little weeds here for you, but you realize you can sit here and hit a button and have any image you want based on your source image, the way you want it cranked out. Like this deck I'm showing you here, I made in less than 15 minutes. My speaks. I'll show you how to do that too. Yes, sir.
You use Midjourney, is that your thing?
Thank you. Yes, Midjourney. Midjourney was one that's made by Discord.
Currently, which one?
I look in ChatGPT now. Yeah, the tools for image creation have gotten so kind of competitive. GPT-5 is super strong. There's also this thing like how many people did a land grab when AI came out and started buying every tool you could find? I did. You know how many subscriptions I have right now that are now dead that I don't give a crap about, but I paid for an entire year because it's such a deal at $300-400, but it's a tool that's just so antiquated. Don't buy anything long term in AI right now. It's going so fast. Whatever you get today will probably be replaced tomorrow, rolled into some other tool. So, but yeah, so you make some instructions, and now you have this thing that is canon. It knows exactly how it's supposed to be, the what the output's supposed to be. And now every time I want Inky, give me an Inky presenting to KSU, right? And he will be. He'll be sitting here in the room presenting to the faculty. I'm really bad at typing. but I'll have it, and I don't have seed up right now. So my seed image. For some reason, GPT doesn't want to play with me on the seed image so much. There he is. Okay, that he's really cute. But if I do this, we'll come back to him after it starts running. Presenting. Told you the audience is interesting. And so now I have the seed linkage, seed linky, and now it's going to create one. We've all kind of done this exercise before, I'm sure. Everybody's making pictures, right? But what you'll see is a very specific inky. It won't be random. It'll be exactly what I asked for. So back to my presentation. So consistent characters, we'll come back to that. And I think it kind of covers it. I don't want to go on too much on this one subject. There's other places to go. Any questions on just character creation, making things using GPT? Here he comes. He's winding up. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. I got two. You first.
And you're doing all this in chat GPT?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, at least that one. Is it Mason?
Yes.
Memorable guy, I remember you.
So my question comes, I kind of have an operator in ChatGPT.
Awesome.
My question is, how much do you, or are you willing to share with it based off kind of like security?
That's a really good question. There's a reality too around these. These aren't your models. They don't belong to you. It goes into some pool. It's not a walled garden. I think philosophically you got to make your own guesses. I wouldn't put corporate IP in there, any kind of secret sauce. So keep that out. But the moment you start carrying around these, you kind of gave up a lot of privacy out of the gate. So it depends on what generation you are. You might be more comfortable. I'm pretty comfortable. If you want to steal my identity, go for it. You pay my bills. Yes. No, wait, did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You said you've built computers before.
Yes.
When's the last time you've done that? Have you considered, getting like a bunch of graphics card and making like a locally hosted model for security reasons? I've seen some people buying a bunch of NVIDIA cards and making a computer that's like actually run off their own power for security reasons, or maybe it's trained more specifically. Have you ever considered doing that?
Already done.
You already
So I built a new rig last month, 5090 RTX card, and its newest chips, memory out the wazoo, so to speak. And it's coming to like, huh?
How'd you go 5090?
Because I'm gangster.
There you go. So do you just have like a desktop?
Yeah, I'll show you pictures afterwards.
Have
It's my baby.
you considered? I've seen setups where they literally just have a locally hosted farm with like 10 4090s or something ridiculous like that.
Challenge is there's a power bill that comes.
Yes.
And until I can hack in the local grid and get it for free, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
I live in Florida. I think my monthly bill in summer is $900 to $1,000 a month without that thing running.
Well, if you ever need to get ready for 5090, I have a 4070 Ti super. I'd love to upgrade.
Love it. Absolutely love it. No, it is something. And I've been tinkering for a long time. It's super fun. My rig's liquid cool. It overheats sometimes if I run too much stuff on it, even with all that cooling.
Do you run an Intel or AMD processor?
Intel. We can definitely swap those. Any other questions?
So I guess and from perspective,
Probably gonna bring me back home.
a smaller organization, do you see this growing to where organizations are providing brand identity protocols for people who are generating images? Like social media came out, people were doing social media, and the companies in waste tech, we got to put a chokehold on that. And because of the messaging going out inconsistent, do you see a time where companies are going to start having brand identity programs for these types of tools?
Yeah, 100%. I believe that's in place now. I do work with Esper as well, also with MicroTouch, and I've had conversations with their marketing where I've done some really fun stuff with fireworks and blowing up their logo. Like, that was great, but you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Right? Brand standards have to be kept. I would let you. I think I did actually when we did the thing at the Cosmos. But no, brand standards are so incredibly important. Not for the ones that do amazingly well and do something beautiful, and it's sad that they can't let that stuff shine, but it's for the other people that are making stuff that will drag the brand down. They have to maintain that, But I do believe that at some point there will be an agent that each company will have that will say, for example, Charlie Tuna, my grandpa So yeah, you want to do Charlie Tune anything? Yeah, go on the company thing, it will produce it for you, and we will know it's the specs, and you can have it doing anything you want.
Within reason.
Within the specs of what that thing is. And there's going to be guardrails up, right?
I guess it's helping out with sales enablement and other schools.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
getting it.
Yeah, I mean, like this deck here, this is all inkified all the way through. It's just because I generated each inky for each little page that I was going to put on there. This is the actual thing I'm talking about, right?
You that worked into the gamma?
That's what's coming up next. Spoiler. No, we're really, they're going there. So, anything else before we move on? Let's go back and see how Inky's doing. And there's my Inky presenting to the audience. Right? It's him. There's no derivation or deviation from what the original image was. It goes right in line with him. I could literally put him into Google Flow right now and have him give a presentation on that the white paper, whiteboard, right? And I can have the audience clap it. He'll even give you the audio to go with it. It's what we can do now is incredible. Like, and what a great time to be alive. You know, Star Trek didn't have it right. Like, they undershot it. We're so far beyond the future of what they had in mind. But that's like beaming places and stuff like that. We're working on it, but
we'll continue to boldly go into the future.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. So let's go back. And we're going to go now to John Henry and the steam drill. Does anybody know that story? What is it?
They wanted to see if the new technology was greater than the greatest human.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Turn of the century, the advent of the steam drill came, or the steam engine came. And before that happened, it was hard-working men with chisels, hammers, dynamite, blowing holes in rock, and making their way through the side of a mountain. And one day this guy comes along with a steam drill and says, I can do it faster than any man ever could. And John Henry famously said, no, I will beat that steam drill. And there was a famous race. I don't know if it was actually true or not. But it was the tall tale is John Henry fought the steam drill and they worked side by side. And John Henry did beat the steam drill at the end of that, but he dropped dead right at the end of that moment when he had his moment. And the reality is we're not fighting the steam drill, we're working with it, just like we have every time a new piece of technology comes. People that resist are going to probably lose. Excuse the term, drop dead, or not be able to compete. And the ones that do, well, they'll use this thing and get through the living rock so much faster, right? And so that's the thing I'm about to show you, is I had choices and tools I could bring to the table to show everybody, to give you an idea of what's possible now. And this one I'm going to show you today is a thing called Gamma. Who's using Gamma today? Awesome, awesome. Gamma. Beautiful. Those of you who haven't seen it before, this could probably be the most exciting figure to see all week. All right, I got 10 minutes. All right. So, we're going to go into Gamma. And by the way, that presentation I've been showing you right now is a Gamma presentation. Gamma can do websites. Gamma can do anything where there's a presentation to be done. And I just figured, let's just go a little fast here. Once I hit play, I want you to run a stopwatch. Let's make a presentation. I'll take an idea from anybody in the room. Quick, quick. Who's got an idea for presentation? You.
Formula One.
What?
Formula One.
All right, what are we talking about?
Ferrari wins.
All right, so we're going to do Formula One, a presentation. How about a presentation to Formula One? About bringing in Ferrari as a new sponsor. How's that? Okay. Make this compelling to investors and the C-suite. Get one more layer of planning. I think we'll just do it that. Just for now. We'll be up here. And I need to choose my palette, which is fine. Quick. Okay. And what is this? Hold on a second. I got cocky. And now I'm going to generate my presentation. Hit stopwatch. I think you'll start to see it writing it here in a second. There we go. The future's now.
While it's happening, I have a question.
Yeah.
So a lot of colleges will look for AI as far as admissions go.
Yep.
So would this get flagged? Something like this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't go here, by the way.
But this is your co-op, right? So this just gave you a framework to work with. Now, I got lazy and I gave it 3 things in there, right? Now, I could take that initial prompt and then I could write my thoughts around it, and this is what you should do. Put all your own personal thoughts around this thing down. Then you can put the prompt into a ChatGPT, refine this and make it into a prompt for Gamma, right? And if you want to make it even better, so you make it a JSON prompt, JSON prompt, which will get more detail, drop that in, and then hit play, and then you'll have something far more robust than this crappy presentation I just made in 43 seconds. But let's see what it came up with, kids. Let's do a fresh presentation. Here we go. Right? White Ferrari. Okay, the illustration, the narrative. Q2, 2.5, sponsorship and commercial revenues surging, powered by lifestyle, brand expansion, and racing operations excellence. 6.5 billion invested in capital expenditure since IPO, demonstrating unwavering commitment to innovation and sustainable growth. That sounds freaking good, right? And they always say don't try something on stage you haven't tested. I didn't test this. I just wanted to see what happened. I'm okay with a little cringe. But look at this. 500 million global audience, 3x engagement boost. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. And it'll do sliding graphs and charts, and if you hover over, it'll give you tooltips, say what the values are.
And think about it, he did this in what,
45 seconds, right? That is gangster. Yes, sir.
Like the 6.5 billion euros, how comfortable are you on a scale of 1 to 100, like 100? You're setting like your surgeon's using that to save your life. That data point 1, you don't care.
If I'm on a
how
plane,
comfortable are you with the data, the numbers?
if I'm a plane flying to see the guy, I probably wouldn't show. I need to research. If I'm making an emphatic statement I'm putting on there, I'd still research what that data is. I'm probably use the GPT to do it.
If you're building out a financial model for your own business
Yeah.
today, and you were running various inputs and a lot of assumptions, multiple spreadsheets, how comfortable are you with it?
If it has my data,
giving you
absolutely.
info back versus some kind of hallucination?
If it's running off my data, I have complete confidence. Use my data set, use what we've had in it, point it to that area all day. All day. Who else? Yes.
As early career sales professionals that are entering the workforce, and as managing these individuals, how do we encourage them to use AI, but still develop the skills and honing in on crafting good storytelling and being challenged to continue to hone those skills and not just resting on the tool?
I love that question. I think it goes back to algebra. Show your math. Show me how you got to that place. Give me your outline. Because if you do that, it's completely defensible. We started here, right? Here's what it gave me. Here's my collaboration point where I stepped off to my next iteration. And then you see the human fingerprints throughout it. But if they can't show you the pre-work, then clearly they just hit play. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. Anybody else? All right, one more cool example. So, how much time I got? Yeah, a couple minutes. All right, a couple minutes. I'll wow you one last time. Hope I wowed you once. So, all right. So, what I wanted to show you next is I'm going to just jump around. So, anybody familiar with Fixer AI? Yeah, Cobient knows it. Anybody else got Fixer in their library? All right. So, Fixer AI is a tool that answers your emails for you. So, when I come in the morning, I live with a 0 email every day. Right? I go in, I look at my folder, it says drafts. Those are all people who wrote me something, needed a response. All the responses are written. I just have to proofread them. Yep, send, done. Everything else is informational. I know what's going on based on that. And Fixer also happens to have a transcription tool. So when I did like Fireflies, there's lots of different tools you can use to transcribe your calls when you're on a meeting with somebody. I even have a clever slide in my deck that I'm just blown away here. But anybody, well, you guys, who's been to a concert recently? All right, when you were there, how many phones were in the air?
There was a 3DS.
But there's a lot of people with phones going, right? And so this is an analogy. I used to get in trouble when I was in school because I'd be so busy taking notes. And the teacher would yell at me, hey, what did I just ask you? I had no clue. I'm just putting it through my brain on the paper. I'm taking good notes. Not a damn thing he's saying. Right? I think it's the same analogy when people go into concerts. They're watching the concert through their phone and they're not hearing the music. They're not being in it. They're not experiencing that concert. I think the same thing happens when we're in a conversation with somebody. We're busy taking notes of what they're saying. We're probably not catching it all. We're not being present. So now we have these AI note takers. It's going to take all my notes. It's going to catch the things on my ADHD ridden catch because it fly through the room or I heard a sound. But what happens is when I'm done with that conversation and I want to move to the next step, because I was smart enough to ask for the next step, and I did book the next meeting, I did ask for the order. They want a proposal. So here's what I'm going to do, a proposal, and I'm just going to wing it. So this is a call I just had. I asked for permission to be able to use this. I said, sure. So I'm going to copy the transcript, which is what they call log, right? And I'm going to go back to my old friend GPT over here, and I'm going to go to my buddy the wordsmith, right? And I'm going to say, take the following, and write a proposal for this prospect. And now it's going to write me a full proposal for this prospect. And I'll present this. If you got to think about it for a second, now here we go. Here's my proposal. Executive summary. Heard everything they're about, looked up their websites. In fact, as this is doing this before I get on a call, my pre-call discovery is I'll see every email in there. I already wrote a scraper that looks at my calendar, wakes up every day, sees who my meetings are with. It looks up the domain by which that meeting's with, the people on that. It tells me who I'm meeting with, gives me a synopsis on each person. It tells me about that business before I ever get there. I didn't do any research. I didn't do no research. It was just a no code. Here's the things you will do today. But yeah, here we go. Objectives, pipeline creation, awareness to scale, event ROI, the compounds. It's giving me everything I need for my proposal. The plan, what we're going to do in 4 to 6 weeks. So you're getting the sense. Now, if I sent this out to my client, I'd be a complete jerk. I need to proofread it and make it mine. But it sure did all the scaffolding and a lot of heavy lifting I would have had to have done to get here. And most people just copy their good proposal and plug some stuff into it. What if it was new every time? What if it heard everything that your prospect said? How powerful would that be? Oh, he caught that? That's amazing. So that's what I got to share today. I hope this is valuable to you. I know I went in a bunch of different directions, but that's me. I was my old guy at the concert with people around watching through the screens, right? But my name is Michael Beck. It's been my honor to talk to you. And if you have any questions, I am here for you. I have my business cards ready. It doesn't have to be commercial. I just love to help people. That's what gives me joy. That's why I'm here. That's my role.
Did a lot of you even know this existed? No. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we've got Josh Bird coming up with Cobient. And then after that, we'll have the networking session.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I am keenly aware that I am standing in between you and the reception and then whatever else you may be doing tonight. So my name's Josh Bird, and I really appreciate your attention today. I am from Cobient AI. And we're going to talk a little bit today about, or tonight, this evening, about how AI can be your batting cage to actually help you learn to be a better human, or to have better skills and have better communication skills. So, earlier we were talking, and Keith was talking about how buyers are already showing up ready. So we want to talk about what do we want to do with that, right? But before we get into it, just a little bit about me. My name is Josh Bird. I am Chief Growth Officer at Cobient AI. Cobient AI is a company who is doing AI role play. Students in the room, how many of you are using Cobient AI? Give me a big whoop whoop. Yeah! All right, students love it. We actually work with almost 50 universities across the country who have dynamic and growing sales programs to help them scale their role play and train. One of our favorite customers is here at KSU. We love you guys. Thank you for having us. So I'm going to give you, I'm not a slide reader, I'm more of a talker, but a little background on Cobient AI. Where did this technology come from and what we're talking about? It was actually us solving a problem for ourselves. So there is another company called Cobient Health. It's a sister company, and that company sells a product to hospitals. And it's a really hard product to sell. And they hired me to come in and figure out why deals weren't closing. And because they were having great conversations with some of these hospitals, but the deals weren't closing. And so they hired me as an interim chief revenue officer to come in and figure out why aren't these deals closing. And what I found out after, listening to the calls, shadowing, trying to figure it out, is we had a training gap. How many of you in your organizations have found you have a training gap? It's kind of a scary realization sometimes, because once you have that knowledge, it's like, uh-oh, what do I do with it? Right? I got to do something. I can't just, bury my head in the sand. And so, we have a training gap. We're a small business. And, we're like, well, I can do a book study with them, or we can bring in a consultant. But there's this stat you all might have heard that 87% of new knowledge without reinforcement is lost in 2 weeks, which seems like a big old waste of money to bring in a really good trainer that comes in and does a seminar, but then they go on about their daily lives without any reinforcement and forget everything we just invested in. And so this was the end of 2023, and our founder said, I think this AI stuff is pretty cool. I bet I can build an AI bot to role play with them and train them in the way we want them to sell, and learn to be flexible based on if they're talking to a CFO of a hospital, or a surgeon, or a nurse, or the person at the front desk, a gatekeeper in a discovery call, right? All of those are different conversations and nuanced. And he went away and built it. And our jaws fell on the floor, and then we started showing other people after it worked for our very small sales team. It was a sales team of 4. And we showed one university who told another university who told another, and next thing you know, we are one of the leading suppliers of this technology to universities across the country. And then we showed it to other industries, and next thing you know, we're working with companies like Mars Wrigley and Eli Lilly, and we have people calling us from these huge companies asking what we're doing. And so it's been a really interesting groundswell. And so today I want to talk about why. Why is that happening, right? So sales all-stars aren't bored. The sales training industry has been around for a very long time, but yet not everybody's so well trained. I love this stat. Buyers report that 50% of the time, the difference between their vendor of choice and the runner-up was only the salesperson's ability. Now that goes back to what Nikita was talking about. Buyers still buy from people. They build trust. I believe that in an AI world, especially when you're talking about big decisions, they still buy from people. And so 50% of the time, the only difference was the person. Because let's be honest, a lot of technologies, a lot of services, they're really similar. They're really similar at the end of the day, and people buy from people. The second stat that is crazy to me is 70% of salespeople say they actually lack formal training. And I was shocked. I thought, being in startups my whole life, that was just a startup problem, right? I thought we didn't have enough time or whatever to make it happen, but it turns out it's an epidemic that salespeople don't really have formal training. Thank goodness we've got programs like this one and others that are changing that from the ground up with our new reps. I was at a sales competition just last week where KSU was, among others, and these students are impressive. Michael was right when he was talking about these students are incredible. The world is in good hands, but a lot of people don't have the opportunity to come and be a part of a program like KSU, right? And they need training. And I got to wonder why. Well, first of all, there's never enough time. We all got the same 24 hours in the day, but if you're a sales leader or sales manager or sales professor, you got a lot of things. You've got competing priorities, right? You've got to do, you got to make sure the numbers are right for the quarter or the year. Or you've got to be making sure your newer salespeople are coming along. You've got to be doing all of these things. You've got to be preparing your board report. And all of it pushes sales training to the background because we settle for good enough, or we settle for hope. Who in here has ever heard of hope is not a strategy? Who in here has ever hoped a sales call will go well? Me too. Me too. But hope isn't a strategy, right? But we rely on it all too often, partially because there's never enough time to train and we have competing priorities, but there's also not been a structured, scalable way. I was talking to a company, an organization the other day that has 34,000 global employees, and they have a 3 or 4 person learning and development team. You can't possibly give everybody the time they need to really have conversational one-on-one training and meet them where they are. It just doesn't work. And then the last is, who's ever done a really awkward role play to practice with somebody? It feels unsafe. Meaning, like, what if your boss is judging you and you say something stupid and you're like, man, they're going to remember that for the rest of my career here. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. The funny thing is, now that I'm a boss, sometimes I'm going, what if I say something stupid and they're judging me the whole time and think I'm not a very good boss? But it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel good. And it also, we're human. If you catch me after my second cup of coffee, I'm probably paying attention pretty well. If you catch me at the end of the day, nah, not so much. And I mean well, but I got other things on my mind, right? So the human factor is just too much to overcome. And so this is where artificial intelligence has really stepped in for us as a business and for the businesses we serve, because now you can have these unscripted AI avatar conversations. And if you don't know what an AI avatar is, if you can look back and you see them moving, but these are actually, on the right is a human and on the left is an AI. But they look like a human, they talk like a human, they object like a human, they act like your buyer because we made them to act like your buyer. And your reps can get immediate feedback on their empathy, on their selling style, on what they're doing well, and get coaching on what they could do better. And it's customizable to your organization. There was a lot of talk here about, well, my organization is very siloed. We're very careful about IP. We honor that. That's something that we do. But talking about AI just in general, it opens up scale, right? And everybody's heard the term or the saying, practice makes perfect. I don't love that, but practice does make progress. Right? So, that is what we're doing when we have sales practice. When I first talked to the KSU folks, Dr. Lowe here is the king of role play. He made a whole competition out of role play and really helped a ton of students. But then it got popular, And now you got 4 of them, plus Ellis, who's not here, 5 of them. And how many students do you have? 500 more? You can't, right? And so you can build now AI to extend the great coaching and instruction that they give and allow students to practice over and over and over again until they get it right. That's why I call it the AI batting cage. But, like, you might be going, does it really work? Does it, I mean, yeah, it sounds cool, it's neat, it's shiny. Does it really work? Well, first of all, does it work? Okay, there's some customer testimonials, but more scientifically, practice strengthens your neural pathways. It strengthens your ability to think of the right thing to say in the right moment. You know, up until now, you might put a sales rep into training or onboarding, and then you put them out in front of a customer and hope they remember it. Well, you need to strengthen those neural pathways the same way you need to strengthen your muscles when you go to the gym and you work out over and over again. It also reduces stress response. So the behavioral brain research on reducing stress response, why do you think that is? It's because they've been there before. They've practiced every way that a buyer can zig and zag. And so when that buyer is coming in, like Keith said, and they're already loaded, locked and loaded with questions, which, by the way, they are. I've had 6- and 7-figure deals come in the door recently that we didn't prospect to. They found us on ChatGPT. It was awesome. I love that. But they were locked and loaded with questions. And I mean, you've got to be able to practice those, and you don't want a rep you just hired shooting from the hip and hoping. You know, those are make or break deals. And then lastly, boost your confidence again because you've been there. And so does it work? Yeah, we're measuring 83% faster learning than the old ways of doing role plays across the studies we've done. 44% increase in sales effectiveness. This is how well they can manage and navigate tough sales conversations. And 91% of our users have reported just a general boost in confidence, right? They're like, I feel good going into that. How many of you have ever practiced a pitch or something in a mirror? Or maybe even asking a girl out, we practiced, right? Well, this is if the mirror could talk back to you and give you pointers. That's where we're going with this. I'll tell you a quick story to give you an idea of how good these avatars are getting. And it's not just because we're building them. This is the AI technology in general. But I was testing an avatar to see how mean I could make it. You can set how the avatar acts. Are they friendly? Are they nice? Are they mean? And several of the students have come up to me and they were like, one of them was really mean. And yep, that was you. That was you.
Francine.
Yeah, we even had one student last week. We created our own avatar of one of our team members. Arden back there is our head of customer experience. And when you start with Cobient AI, you role play with Arden. And one was like, you yelled at me. And she's like, I didn't yell at you. That was the avatar. And they were like, sure felt like it. But my favorite story was I was testing one, and we were seeing how mean we could get it. And this avatar was just berating me. Like, he was being mean, y'all. And my 8-year-old daughter at the time came in and goes, Dad, why is that guy being so mean to you? And I said, oh, honey, it's work stuff. I'm just testing. She goes, he's not real? And I was like, no, he's an AI avatar. And she said, can I talk to him? And I said, okay, but just know that he doesn't know that you're an 8-year-old, so sit in my lap, and if he says something mean, just know that, I got you. And so she's sitting in my lap, and she, to do our role play, you have to initiate. She initiates the role play, and she goes, why are you being so mean to my daddy? And he goes, I'm just here for facts. I don't care about your daddy. And she goes, well, I don't like you. And he said, well, good. I'm not here to be liked. And I was, in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing something that's very real. It's not shiny. It's actually helping people to converse and to learn to speak to others. You know, somebody mentioned that during COVID, a lot of us kind of forgot how to talk to people because we were all under lock and key, and it really affected young people. And so this technology is helping people to learn to navigate tough conversations. The fun thing is, probably at this point, only 50% of our business is actually sales training. We've been approached by hospitals for compassion training and for physician leadership training. And we're working with Mars Wrigley on how to have compassionate and understanding conversations with their line level employees because they've got a gap where the leadership is not identifying with those people that are actually running the belts every day. And it's magnificent. And so, you know, back to sales, a lot of people are asking, well, you know, how much better can a salesperson get, especially an older one, an experienced one, right? And I look at it like this, and this graph is a great example of when ChatGPT doesn't actually listen to the numbers. The numbers don't make sense, so don't listen, but look at the numbers and say, that doesn't quite. But in every sales team, you've got a bell curve. You've got your top performers, you've got the ones that are circling the drain, right? And you might can improve your top performers a little bit. The ones at the bottom, maybe, maybe not. But most of them are in the middle. And what if the ones in the middle, all of the ones in the middle improved by 44%? What would that mean for revenue? What would that mean for your company's health and vitality, right? That's what we're chasing, right? Is how can you use this AI as your batting cage? Any Braves fans in here? Yeah, me too. I'm sorry. This was not our year. But thank goodness, season's over. We got a new manager. And what do you think they're going to go do? Practice. It's time to practice. It's time to get after it. We're talking about practice. And you caught that. You caught that. All right. We're talking about practice here. But they're going to go back and practice. And then what happens when, you know, they get new intel or they get a new person? They've got to fold them into their team and continue to practice. So I want to look at the 3 levels of role play that we're seeing right now. And the first one is baseline skills. This is using AI role play for onboarding, for selling methodologies. You know, you can teach them Spin, you can teach them Sandler, you can teach them Miller Hyman, you can teach them the Coca-Cola version of any of those. We don't work with Coca-Cola, but if anybody's got a hookup, I could use some help there. But you can teach them how the company operates, right? Second one is this term, I didn't make it up, I wish I did, because I think it's pretty clever. It's everboarding, right? You go from onboarding to everboarding. So now you've got new competitors coming up all the time. You've got new intel. You've got new positioning. And you've got new market trends. You've got new product releases and negotiations and marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. And those salespeople, those battle people that are on your front lines, they got to know how to talk about them. And so, you know, wherever you are, the ones who are doing it well are thinking about it as a monthly cadence. They're always updating their salespeople. They're encouraging them to train for even just once a week. What happens if a salesperson spends 30 minutes a week training? That's not that much time. But if they do, they will get better, right? And so that's kind of the level 2, and we see some of our clients starting to go there. The next level, I think, is future looking. It's deal specific role play. Okay, now I'm going, somebody hooked me up in here and I got a meeting with Coca-Cola, thank you. So now I want to build a role play for Coca-Cola that's built in with all their objections and all of their, you know, specifics. we'll be able to do that. I'm lucky I can have Arden help me do that when I have a really big meeting, and she will. But the future is coming where salespeople can use that as a part of their strategy, right? So we talked about, the tools that we use to pull in all the intel on the person we're meeting with, or on the company, or the past calls we've had, and all of that. Well, what if you could dump that into a role play and just role play it out, right? Practice your pitch, practice answering those objections. I believe that's where it's going. It's not quite there yet, but it's coming. And the last one, I thought, would be the last one to come. We're seeing this now, which is sales management conversations. Has anybody in here ever been trained to put somebody on a pivot? If you have, good for you. The first time I had to do it, I was shaking in my boots. It is uncomfortable. That is not a natural dinner time conversation, right? And there's a load of those, because what happens in sales management? Usually you take your best rep, who's high performing, and you promote them. And that's great, except they're really good at talking to people and customers and selling and closing the deal and all that. They've never had any training in leadership conversations. They've never had any training in difficult conversations. And so it's a way to really help them learn to be better sales managers. And so we're seeing that a lot as well. So I'm not here to sell. Love to talk to you afterwards, but the one thing that makes us different, first and foremost, is I highly encourage everybody to use some AI role play, period, full stop. If it's just talking to ChatGPT and you tell ChatGPT to act like your buyer, do it. There's no reason not to practice anymore. And then there are different levels of abilities. For us, we're built for high stakes training. We're built for super complex sales. We're trusted by industry leaders that you all know their name. And we pride ourselves on having the most realistic conversations. I mean, we're really pushing the technology. A lot of the AI role plays is, a skin or something built on top of one LLM, maybe two. We're built on 11 right now, and Arden always makes a face because she might have just added one or just deprecated one. We're always moving. And the reason is we believe we're a training company, and our job is to help your learners learn. And to do that, we've got to keep pushing. We're testing stuff like, can the avatar develop emotions based on the conversation, right? Can they get sad? Can they get angry instead of starting angry, right? Can you say something that is offensive and then they get mad at you, and then what happens, and how do you navigate that conversation? All that stuff is coming. It's here. And it's just around the corner. And so we're really pushing the envelope for those realistic conversations. So I know a lot about AI and AI role play. I'm certainly not an expert, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And if you want to connect with me, you can scan the QR code there. That takes it to a form that actually sets a meeting with me. So I'll handle questions if you got them. If not, we can have a reception, right?
Sorry.
You got a couple?
Yeah, just one. Do you know if I've seen companies that use filmed and videoed interviewing, or any, and to do that with a blank screen or whatever, it's really, are companies using this as an interviewing tool?
So interesting. Lots of interest. There is a big divide on, is that the impression we want to give of our company? Is that going to give a good representation of our company? I see it as coming sooner than later for screening, especially some of these like CoStar Group, right, which might have hundreds or thousands of applicants, right? Can you run those through and somehow have the cream rise to the top? I see that happening probably sooner than later. We also see universities on the flip side of it using it as interview prep for their students before they go into an interview with one of you. And so we see it on both sides. I do think interviewing is going to be a big part of it. I think people are just trying to figure out the branding part of it, right?
Woohoo! Ooh, yeah. In the pines of Kennesaw, under gold and black skies, Scrappy's wings take flight while the owls rise. Students gather, minds alive, questions in the air. At the AI and Sales Symposium, we're ready to dare. Dr. Inks and Brent hold the torch in hand. Keith and Josh and AKA ready to stand. John Diddick on the mic, setting the pace. We're blending human spark with machines in this space. We fly with Scrappy, we fly with pride. Wisdom, justice, moderation.